election night in America. The polls are now closed. Voters waiting in line to cast their ballots in this historic election.
From long lines to the big races, we've got a team of reporters covering it all.
And as for Texas, all eyes on the race for U.S. Senate, one of the most expensive races in the country. Senator Ted Cruz versus Congressman Allred.
I've spent 12 years fighting every day for jobs, for freedom, and for security in Texas, producing real results. Listen, what we're doing in Texas is working. We have low taxes, low regulations, lots and lots of jobs.
I want to serve this state. We don't have to have a senator who goes to Cancun when we need him most. We can have one who stays here and rolls up his sleeves and gets to work for you. That's what I'll do.
How much they should get paid and for how long, that's up to voters to decide. I'm Rania Kaur with the city's propositions and how they'll impact City Council.
And it is going to be with you on this election night right here. We will be with you every step of the way for the next 3 hours. I'm Henry Ramos.
And I'm Isis Romero. Thank you so much for joining us on KENS 5+ for this special streaming edition of election night coverage. We are watching the polls closely, waiting for the first results to come in. We have got a team of reporters covering local and state races, and throughout the evening, we'll be bringing you reaction and live analysis.
And the polls are now closed, as we mentioned just within a minute ago. And on this election day here in Bexar County, more than 116,000 people have cast their ballots today. And that figure was the latest update from Bexar County as of 2 hours ago.
We are expecting an update around 7:15, and we will, of course, bring that to you live.
And those voters joining the more than 574,000 people who voted early in Bexar County. Here's a look at a line today from the John Ego Library. Throughout the day, Bexar County election officials, they've been giving updates on how today has been going.
Voters are really savvy. They've figured out this vote center part, which is still the best thing we ever had, that our voters can vote at any site they want. That's what's important. They don't have to race back home when it gets to be 5 o'clock tonight to vote at their home precinct. They can vote at any one of our 302 sites.
That was Jackie Callanan earlier today. As she mentioned, 302 vote centers throughout Bexar County. I think it's safe to say there are always people in line right at 7 o'clock. And as long as you are in line, you still will be able to vote. By the way, the Bexar County Elections Administrator said that the busiest polling site today was Brook Hollow Library.
And as we just mentioned, Bexar County had a robust turnout during the early voting period and election day today. Poll workers and election officials are wrapping things up as we await tabulation totals.
KENS 5 reporter Hannah Tita has been at election headquarters all day. She's been talking to election officials and joins us live with a breakdown. Hannah?
Downtown, dozens of people are still in line. Now, the people who were in line before 7 o'clock, they will still be able to cast their ballots, but anybody who joins the line after 7 o'clock, they're going to be turned away from the polls. Now, election officials tell us that they are pleased with the turnout in Bexar County this election day, but voter turnout in Bexar County is still down slightly from the record-breaking 2020 presidential election. We're told nearly 117,000 people voted before 5 p.m. today. Now, that's on top of the 575,000 early voters and the nearly 33,000 mail-in ballots that have been collected so far. So let's break that down for a second. We're looking at a 56% voter turnout in Bexar County again before 5 o'clock tonight. Now, during the 2020 presidential race, the total turnout was over 65%. Election Administrator Jackie Callanan says part of that is due to the growing population here in Bexar County. Bexar County also had 3 times as many mail-in ballots back in 2020 during COVID, of course. Now, with the polls closed, the workers are just getting started. The work is just getting started, I should say, rather, for election workers.
The lower sites will come in. They'll, they won't have a line. They'll be able to close the process. Now, I will tell you the closing process on this is going to take a while. We've talked about how long that ballot is, and when the tape comes out, the results come out, it has everything from the regular ballot to the city to a school district. It has everything, and it's going to take close to, I think we figured about 20 minutes for one tape, and we have to print 2.
Early vote and mail-in results will start coming in soon, but Callanan says Election Day results will likely start seeing those numbers sometime after 8 o'clock tonight. Happening right now, though, election judges are starting to take the electronic data collected from 302 voting locations in Bexar County to 5 district offices. Now, from there, they're going to start feeding those final results back here to the Bexar County Elections Department downtown. So again, we're looking for the first results to come in really soon from early voting numbers. Callanan tells us she's going to be speaking around 7:15 to bring us those first look at the early results from early voting. And again, later on this evening, we'll start seeing Election Day results come in sometime after 8 o'clock. We will be streaming those updates online, so stay with us, KENS5.com. For now, reporting live downtown, Hannah Tita, KENS 5.
We will be watching. Thanks so much, Hannah, and we will bring it to you right here on KENS 5+. As for the race to the White House, so far CBS has called Kentucky, Indiana, West Virginia for former President Donald Trump, and Vermont for Vice President Kamala Harris. In this close race, I mean, as cliche as it sounds, it's what people have been saying. It's really going to come down to voter turnout in those battleground states.
Cristian Benavides is outside a polling location in Atlanta.
Polling sites across the country are seeing strong turnout as voters decide the next president. Voters say they came out to weigh in on the issues.
The southern border is definitely a big issue for me.
For me, it's going to be women's rights.
Heading into Election Day, polls showed former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris basically tied in the 7 key battleground states, including Georgia, which set an early voting record and has busy polling places today.
I love the energy.
So you think both sides are energized?
To a certain extent, yeah, I think so. I think you're seeing more passion.
What do you think is motivating those who are voting for Kamala Harris?
Hope, honestly. Hope everybody, sees that America is ready to turn this new page in our history.
The closeness of this race indicates results will likely take a while. On his way to the Harris campaign watch party in D.C., running mate Tim Walz made a stop in Make or Break, Pennsylvania.
It's going to take some time to get results. We're going to go up, down, but at the end of the day, as we always do, we will get the results that we know are accurate.
Casting his ballot in Palm Beach, Florida, Trump sowed doubt about the process.
I'm hearing in Pennsylvania they won't have an answer till 2 or 3 days from now. I think it's an absolute outrage if that's the case.
Both candidates will be watching closely with one of the most contentious and unpredictable campaigns in history now in the hands of the people. Cristian Benavides, CBS News, Atlanta.
Taking a look at things nationally, members of Congress are also on the ballot in all 50 states. And the balance of power in the House and Senate could tip either way. Now, 34 seats are on the ballot for the Senate. The Senate is currently controlled by the Democrats by a very slim 2-seat margin. Democrats are up for re-election in 2 states Trump won in 2020, including Ohio, where newcomer Republican Bernie Moreno is challenging incumbent Democrat Sherrod Brown.
And all 435 seats in the House of Representatives are up for grabs. However, experts say that only a few dozen are competitive.
But because of redistricting, those seats that normally wouldn't be competitive are now competitive.
Right now, Republicans hold the chamber with a slim 4 seats, but Democrats, they're trying to chip away at that razor-thin races that are happening in New York and California.
Turning now to a very big race here in our area, the race for Bexar County Sheriff.
Incumbent Javier Salazar is seeking his 3rd term. He is up against Republican Nathan Buchanan. And as for Salazar, he touts the following as some of his main accomplishments as sheriff: his fight against organized crime, increasing pay for deputies, and increasing accountability. And the sheriff has also gained national attention by speaking at the DNC that happened over this past summer.
And this is not the first time, meantime, that Nathan Buchanan has run for a county office. Buchanan ran unsuccessfully for county judge as well as for constable. He's a small business owner, but has served previously, that is, with Castle Hills PD as well as BCSO.
Now let's go live to KENS 5's Vanessa Croy, who is following the race for Bexar County Sheriff tonight. Vanessa?
Henry and Isis, good evening. We're here at the Bexar County Democratic Watch Party. It is a huge crowd out here tonight. They told me they had expecting at least 400 people that have RSVP'd, and I was just at the door, and a couple other people came up and said, can we still come in? And they said, come on. So it's going to be a great time here tonight. And joining us right now is Gilberto Hinojosa. He is the Texas State Democratic Party Chair. Mr. Hinojosa, I'm going to ask you to come stand over here. It's so loud in here, it's hard to hear. And it's a great honor that you're here in our great city of San Antonio joining us here for all the excitement tonight. So how are you feeling about what's happening today?
Well, nationwide, it's looking great. I mean, it's going to be tight all across the United States, but in the swing states, our candidate, Vice President Harris, is looking really good. The turnout is huge, which is always good for Democrats. In the state of Texas, all across the state, we've had very large turnout here in San Antonio. Harris County, the crowds are huge that are coming in to vote as well. I'm from the Rio Grande Valley originally. We have in the counties that I've been visiting, the turnout this election is higher than 2020, which was one of the largest we've ever had before. So we're very optimistic. You know, we've got Colin Allred running statewide against Ted Cruz. He's been polling very high. He's across the state of Texas, very well liked, particularly in the DFW area. And so we're very hopeful that he will be able to become our next United States Senator.
Yes. And like I said, there's a lot of excitement out here tonight with our Democrats here in Bexar County. That's what we're so glad you're here. But talk about, I know we also have some House races here in Texas that are very important tonight. If you could talk about that.
Well, they're critical. When Greg Abbott went after his members of the legislature because they did not vote for vouchers, he installed a bunch of conservative Republicans into the legislature that have committed to voting for vouchers, and he got rid of Democrats that were, Republicans that were against the vouchers. So we've got to make up those losses and elect, Democrats here in San Antonio. There's two critical positions that we think we can win and will win that will make a difference in the total vote. We've also got some races in Dallas County that we're hopeful we can also pick up seats. We need to pick up 3 to 4 seats to make up for the losses of the moderate Republicans on the voucher bill. So we're hopeful that tonight we'll be able to have a blue wall on the issue of education to ensure that our Texas children have maximum funding for education, and that you don't take away from that funding by giving away these vouchers to people that really don't need it. We call it welfare for the rich. And so we're very hopeful that the legislative races come out the way we anticipate. We've put a lot of time and effort and money into those races, and we've got a great set of candidates, particularly here in San Antonio.
Yeah. Mr. Hinojosa, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and welcome to San Antonio. We're glad you're here. And as you can see tonight, like we said, a big crowd. Let me give you a look around. We have some more distinguished guests expected here tonight, including, you can see on the stage right there, Sheriff Javier Salazar is here tonight. He's expected to take the stage around 8 o'clock. But also joining us here tonight is many other candidates running for office right now, including Christian Carranza, who's running for Texas House District 118. Running against her is Republican opponent John Lujan. Also, Laurel Jordan Swift, she's out for Texas House District 121. Her Republican opponent is Mark LaHood. So a lot of important races and a lot of Democrats here in Bexar County out celebrating tonight, and we are still waiting on some numbers to come in, so no doubt we will have some more people taking the stage later tonight, and we'll be back checking in with you, bring you more live what's happening out here. For now, reporting here at Cowboys Dance Hall, the Bexar Democratic Watch Party, Henry Isis, we're going to send it back to you.
All right, Vanessa, thank you so much. A very big venue there. Now let's get to the Texas race for U.S. Senate. Incumbent Senator Ted Cruz is facing off against Congressman Colin Allred. Now, Cruz is hoping to secure a third term in office. During his campaign, he said his #1 priority is jobs. His Democratic opponent, Colin Allred, campaigned on border issues, the state's abortion ban, and then you've got health care as well.
And we have team coverage on this race for U.S. Senate. Alicia Nieves is in Dallas covering the Colin Allred campaign. But first, let's go to Megan Reyna, who is live tonight in Houston following the Cruz campaign. Megan?
Well, EC's Henry, doors just opened at this official watch party here in downtown Houston about 15 minutes ago, and the crowd is starting to grow, and there's really no anxiety I can sense here. Of course, Cruz, like you mentioned, looking to secure that third term, and the latest polls that we checked just today, it still had him leading over Congressman Allred, but I will say Cruz has admitted to himself and to his supporters that this is a tough race. Back in 2018, if you recall, he narrowly beat Beto O'Rourke, but still his campaign is confident Texas will vote red. This morning, Cruz spent some time with different radio shows. Just yesterday, though, he was in our area in Selma talking to a crowd about 500 people, mainly pressing on immigration and border control, which has been a big focus for both candidates this election cycle. Now, that was the last day of his bus tour that took him around the state. He also mainly focused on those rural areas where he's dominated in the past. San Antonio, as you know, does typically vote blue, but Cruz last election did well in those surrounding counties like Kendall and Bandera. A lot of eyes, of course, are on this race, specifically with the impact it could have over who controls Congress. So with the polls closed, this is now just a waiting game. Of course, we're expected to hear from Cruz later this evening. We don't have an exact time on that. We're just waiting for those results to come in. But like I said, the energy is starting to build here, and his campaign is confident going into tonight. Henry, EC's.
And Megan, you mentioned that we're still waiting for the results, obviously. Have you caught a glimpse of Cruz there? Can you give us a sense of who's there at his campaign event tonight?
No glimpse yet, and we haven't been able to speak with him either. I'm just speaking, though, with the people in control of his campaign. There's really a lot of ease there, and his supporters obviously don't feel very anxious. It's more just a party environment. So as we're waiting, I mean, I don't really sense a lot of anxiety right now. But of course, we'll hear from him later. And like I mentioned earlier, I mean, he has really in the last several days hit the campaign trail hard, going across Texas, our area, the border, up north, really urging people to go out and vote. Of course, they not just for his election, for the presidential election as well. So there has been a huge urge just to get people out to the polls. But again, it really is just kind of like, as they call it, a watch party. People are enjoying themselves out here, and we'll try to get an update from some of his people ahead of his campaign to try and see, what they're sensing right now with, as we're waiting to get those results in. EC's Henry.
All right, Megan, we'll check in with you in just a bit. Now, we are just waiting any minute now for Jackie Callanan, and it looks like she is about to speak to media with a briefing on the latest numbers.
Yeah, we're going to be getting these updates throughout the night. We had our last one. It was at 5 o'clock tonight. It's about to be 7:15. We should be also hearing our first glimpse of these early voting numbers. As you heard Hannah Tita say earlier, we're just going to get the early voting numbers right now, which at last check stood a little bit over 500,000, and then we'll be getting today's election day totals a little bit later in the evening. Let's take Jackie live.
I can't, with that truck there, it's really hard to hear, okay? But we have the results from early voting and by mail. And I want you all to help your viewers and listeners go to our website. We are posting, this is up already. So you can see the results, you can see the results of the races. And then starting somewhere about 8:30, we'll start posting election day. Maybe we can start at 8:15 because I am happy that we already had 51 sites closed. But remember, we have the most we've ever had, so we have 302. It's not like we're bringing in our normal 285. So we have extra sites, and they will come in. And we just pray that our judges will have a relaxed closing. But I want you to understand, because we have such a long ballot, and we shared that the whole time, we have so many entities on our ballot that gathering the results in each of those DS200s takes a lot longer than anything we've seen for at least a year. So those tapes are going to take them a while. And as I said earlier, they have to print 2 tapes. And I know some of the candidates, they have their favorite boxes. So they may send people out to see what those results are. But we will post them online when the votes come in. And like we talked about it before, we have 5 sites that the judges will go to. So just watch our website. That will be continually updated for you. But it was a beautiful, successful day. Does anybody contradict that? You're all quiet. You're all quiet.
Pretty smooth
I'm
sales
praying.
for your last.
That's what it feels like. I'll talk to you when it's over. Like I said, for me personally, this is bittersweet. But again, for me, I think we talked about it before. If we get that final report and it says November 5th, boy, we will be doing a dance of joy. But I am afraid it's going to roll over to November 6th. So bear with us. They're ready to bring you in once the poll site here closes down. They had a few more voters as we came out, but it's been a successful day. I did hear that Johnston Library still had a long line. That was the only one I heard about.
Which one?
Johnston Library. It's down Sun Valley. It's on Sun Valley.
Sun Valley.
Yes. So they were the one that sent us a message to say they still had voters and they thought it was like 100. And I can't speak to anybody else because I was getting the results to come out here. So we'll go in, we'll keep you informed. I know once this closes down, you all will have the luxury of sitting in our break room, so I won't have to come so far to keep you up to date, okay?
What do you results? What do you think the
I'm sorry?
Give the numbers one more time. Whatever numbers you came out with.
The numbers today, at 7 o'clock, we have 146,021 people showing up at the polls. And you just heard me, that number will increase. And that gave us a 58% turnout. So again, I wanted 60. You always have your positive spin on it. But we'll be happy with this. Okay?
Where does that
We'll see you later.
match up? Where does that match up with other years?
We're looking at 22 and 20. In 20, we had a 44% turnout. In 22, in the governor's, we were at 68. So we're less than that one, but we far exceed the presidential. But we want you to remember that the 2020 election was during COVID. So we had many more people voting by mail. This number is only the in-person that happened today. Okay?
Jackie, just to clarify, people can already start finding results online.
Online, they've been posted. Yes, ma'am. Okay. They're there.
Jackie,
go to our website.
As far as how things have gone today, earlier you made comments about turning people away who hadn't updated their addresses, some minor technical issues that seem to be resolved relatively quickly. Anything else? How have things gone since the start of the day to now here, 7:20?
Like I said, we're very, very pleased. And yes, we did have a lot of people updating their addresses. We had hoped that would have been done ahead of time, but if they were in Bexar County and they changed addresses, they were all able to vote. They just had to fill out a statement of residence card so that we could update their address. So there was a little bit more paperwork that the judges had to do at all the sites today. So we'll find out how many. Thank you.
And behind you, I'm seeing that, the line is not quite as long as it was before. Do you think that people will be finished voting here before 8 o'clock?
Oh yeah, they'll be done shortly. The line was magically shorter. And I felt badly because as we were walking over, people were coming up the ramp to vote. It was 7:15. And we were like, we're sorry the polls are closed. So there were some disappointed people here. And I understand that. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see you inside.
Let me get the mic off you, Jackie, before you take off.
All right, you've been listening into a live press conference given by Jackie Callanan, the Bexar County Elections Administrator, where you heard her say, quote, it was a beautiful, successful day. Out of the 302 polling sites around our county, 51 have closed. We do have still some voters in line in certain locations, especially Johnson Library, where she said there was a very long line tonight.
And Callanan also saying, giving latest numbers, because when we started this newscast, we gave about 117,000 people had voted. That's just in person today, but the newest numbers as of 7 o'clock is 146,021, and Callanan does expect that number to go up. As Easy's just mentioned, people are still in line right now at Johnston Library waiting to vote.
58% turnout. She said 60% was the goal across the county, so almost there. A couple of notable things that she mentioned. She said that this was a very long ballot this time around, so gathering the results will take longer. So just be patient with us throughout the night as we try to bring you those updates. She also mentioned they're already posted online. Of course, they have them on their website. We too have them on our website, KENS5.com. And she also getting a little emotional there. We're talking about it being her last election and how bittersweet it is for her. This will be her last election as Bexar County Elections Administrator.
Something that she has held for quite some time. But of course, those numbers still coming in. We will keep you updated right here as well. Meantime, we're going to move over to the Senate race. We took Megan Reyna, who was at the Cruz campaign. Now we'll go to Congressman Colin Allred.
He spent the day campaigning in his hometown of Dallas.
And that is where we find our Alicia Nieves, who caught up with the congressman this afternoon. Alicia?
Henry and Easties, in the final hours leading up to the polls closing, Colin Allred focused on his hometown of Dallas. He went door knocking earlier today, thanked volunteers at a phone bank, and Election Day is where he will stay in Dallas. He is going to be here at the Longhorn Ballroom just south of downtown, and the party started at about 7 o'clock. People started filing in, and the seats right behind me are expected to be full tonight. So take a look at where we were earlier. Around the lunch hour, dozens of volunteers at the Dallas Democratic headquarters grabbed their list of telephone numbers and started making calls, rallying voters for Congressman Colin Allred. Allred stopped by to thank his supporters as part of the final day for his Get Out the Vote efforts across Texas. In his message of thanks, this is a big issue this campaign cycle. He mentioned the women who have come forward telling their stories of what they have been through in the Texas healthcare system following the abortion ban. Allred says this puts women in dangerous situations. He mentioned Nevaeh Crane, an 18-year-old who could not get healthcare after having a miscarriage until the 4th emergency room. She died of organ failure. He also mentioned Yaseli Barnica, who was having a miscarriage and couldn't get help until the baby's heartbeat wasn't detected. She got an infection that caused her to get septic. She passed away days later. His plan is to help Roe v. Wade become law of the land again, saying he supports the protections and restrictions under the law. Allred says he's been the most bipartisan Texan in Congress, with 70% of the bills he's co-sponsored over 6 years being bipartisan.
There's so much on the ballot, but we don't have to have a senator who's all about himself. Ted Cruz only cares about Ted Cruz. Every Texan knows that. I come across so many folks who understand that. They know where they were during the freeze that hit our state. They know where he was. And it's a perfect example of how he sees us. That he wasn't going to spring into action, because what would he do? That's not what he's there for. What he's there for is for himself. I'll be a senator for all of us. I've been the most bipartisan Texan in Congress. I'll be that in the Senate too.
Allred says he's been laser focused on lowering the cost of prescription drugs, on health care, child care, and housing. When he's in the Senate, he says he'll bring back the child tax credit, and he'll make sure we cut taxes for middle-class families, which he says would help more people afford the rising cost of groceries. He knows Texas is growing. A bipartisan infrastructure law he supports would bring $35 billion to Texas over 5 years to keep up with this growing population. Allred has listed a bunch of endorsements. He's been very vocal, for example, on TikTok, trying to cater to the younger voters. So his endorsements include San Antonio Mayor Ron Nierenberg, the owner of the Dallas Mavericks, Mark Cuban, and he has celebrity endorsements as well, among them John Legend and Willie Nelson. We'll check back in with you from Colin Allred's watch party a little later on in the streaming. We're live in Dallas. Alicia Nieves, KENS 5.
Thank you, Alicia. Still so much more to come. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be back with more election coverage.
In less than 3 minutes, political experts will be joining our Deborah Knapp in the studio to add context to those numbers that are rolling into the newsroom. Stay with us for more continuing coverage on this election night.
At the heart of KENS 5 News is our people. People who've earned the trust of our community through years of experience, community connection, and showing up when it matters most. The reporters and anchors at KENS 5 News are the most experienced team in town, consistently delivering the important news you need. They're the people you're familiar with, the people you trust. KENS 5 News, proud to be San Antonio's own.
You told us that alerting you to severe weather before it strikes is the most important thing we can do for you.
We heard you loud and clear.
That's why KENS 5 has weather impact alert days. We will alert you when severe weather is at its worst.
We'll explain the storm's impact
and let you know what you need to do to be safe.
Certainly a possibility for some isolated flooding.
Weather impact alert days from KENS 5.
On all our platforms, it's another way KENS 5 is watching out for San Antonio's zone.
Let's do it! Let's go! Let's do this! I can see clearly now that the rain is gone. Superstar approaching, superstar approaching.
Just get your popcorn and get ready.
Come on, Julia. Oh, no. I will if you will. You go, gal. Yeah, boy!
Dollar Jill.
If you can't get into the market, it's okay. Renting is fine.
Box, oh, it's bad. Screw cap, oh, it's bad. It's not true.
We are making a wonderful lemony chicken.
Ooh, it's hot. That's good.
I wonder what Serena's doing. I wonder how Serena is feeling.
That's a really good question. No one's asked me that yet.
You're 70 years old? 70, yeah. I'm 21.
We'll see you 7 o'clock sharp.
What makes KENS 5 News different? We have a team of people, both on air and behind the scenes, who are from San Antonio, who have lived here for decades. A team of journalists who know the neighborhoods, the issues, and the people. Bringing San Antonio the news that's most important to this community. Local news from local people. We are San Antonio's own KENS 5.
Thank you for joining us on KENS 5 Plus. I'm Deborah Knapp, and our election coverage continues. Polls closed just 30 minutes ago, and now you are determining who wins and who loses tonight. We have a team of reporters tracking local and state races along with the team. And we have two special guests helping us break down the results and add context to the numbers tonight. Joining me now are Laura Barberena, a Democratic communications consultant. Thank you for being here. And Diane Rapp, the Secretary of the Republican Party of Bexar County and a longtime Republican volunteer. Thank you, ladies, for being here. Well, the big race everybody's watching, of course, the presidential race for the White House. And we've got the latest numbers coming in here across Texas. These are very early numbers, but let's take a look at those. 51% right now for Donald Trump, 47% for Kamala Harris. Now, of course, there's no suspense as to what's going to happen in Texas. We're going to be voting for the Republican, but the margins have been shrinking over the last 3 elections. I mean, let me start with you, Laura. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. One, I think there's a little bit of maybe Trump fatigue, right, where we're seeing him become a little bit more on the edge. That's a nice way of putting what I really want to say. But I think, some of these outlandish things that we've seen him, the erratic behavior. So I think there's some Donald Trump fatigue. But then you're also seeing a demographic change, right? You're seeing more Latinos being a part of the voting electorate. You're seeing more participation on their part. So, they say that demography is destiny. I think that's the saying. Demography is destiny. So you're seeing more Latinos participating, and that could ultimately change the outcome. We always say that once Texas turns blue, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, those don't matter anymore, right? Once Texas turns blue, but we're still probably a few cycles away from that happening.
Well, I know, Diane, Republicans have been making a very hard push for Latino votes and have been successful in that. But what do you attribute this shrinking margin to?
I think what you're really seeing is, as you said, the demographic change. Steve Murdoch, the state demographer, forecasted 30 years ago that by 2030, we would be a Hispanic majority and a much younger state. We're one of the youngest states in the country, and usually your younger voters will be more liberal in their voting patterns. So I think that contributes a lot to it. It's interesting because people talk about all the folks moving to Texas from California, but most of the analysis shows that's not really having a significant impact at this time. And I think it's really more a function of demographics, because most people feel that Trump is just saying what people are thinking and are too embarrassed to say out loud. I think the vote's going to show that in Texas that he really does represent the people, and I think nationally you're going to see that same forecast coming true. He says what people are thinking and don't want to say themselves.
That's a little terrifying on my part, being a Latina, because if he's saying what everyone is thinking, then I'm a little scared. Like, that's not the America that I want to grow up in.
But it has nothing to do with Latinas. I mean, I have a Hispanic grandson, so I think it is very much a melting pot in Texas, and Texas really does represent the future of the country.
Yeah, definitely. I guess I was just picking up on when you said what he says is what he's saying the dirty part out loud. That's what worries me, right? Because I do think he's saying some things that are very offensive, and calling politicians like Nancy Pelosi, I mean, he just comes short of calling her the B word, and I mean, he basically refers to it as the B word. And I mean, I just think that's inappropriate in our national politics. I'd like there to be more a civil discourse. Like, let's argue on the policies and not, calling each other names, because I really think that takes away from what I think voters want to hear.
I couldn't agree more, because I think my biggest disappointment is that this has been an election based on personalities and not policies, and people have really voted on promises and not facts and records, because the divisiveness certainly was not one way. When you have the horror stories and the threats that have come out of Kamala Harris, with the Nazi, the end of democracy, end of the country. So both sides clearly, I think, have an opportunity to bring unity and bring people together and moderate the tones, because whoever is elected is going to represent all of us. And clearly the horrible discourse that we have heard from the Democrats with the name calling, even 2 assassination attempts, are very significant, and everyone should take note of that also.
Well, let's, excuse me.
No, wait, but please go ahead.
Okay, well, let's take a quick look at the Senate race here. The race for U.S. Senate with Senator Ted Cruz once again facing a serious challenge, this time by Democratic Congressman Colin Allred. This race could play a major role in what party gets control of Congress after tonight. Here are the latest results. It is tied neck and neck. I mean, polls have shown this anywhere from 1 to 4% difference. And of course, these numbers are very early, but very tight there. So I know that Ted Cruz he's been to Selma and Jordanton with his bus tour, the suburban areas. Do you think that strategy is working, Diane?
I think he really is reaching out to the folks that share that philosophy. And while he's been working on his core and his base, Allred did the same thing, focusing just on those urban and suburban areas. So I think they both were really looking at their base and really looking at where the majority of their votes would come from. You know, one thing people don't appreciate is Cruz's background. The fact that his father was an immigrant and came over as a dishwasher to work his way through school, and that he in fact was born in Canada when his parents established a small business up there. And I think his personal story is one that he does not tell frequently enough.
It's interesting, he's kind of ended the campaign on like a Latino tour, right? He's kind of ended in El Paso and then has gone down to the Valley, really trying to lean in on some of these Latino votes. But what we've seen happening in the polling is that independent men are actually leaning towards Allred, but those same independent men are going to Trump. So you're seeing this Trump-Allred vote, which to me seems so counterintuitive, but it's out there. It's out there. So it's interesting. That's a race we're definitely going to be watching tonight.
Because Allred's a football player, and you have that football player vote that's been playing all across the country.
Yeah. Well, we even saw that with the numbers here, that Trump is doing much better than Cruz is doing.
Right.
In the early vote, anyway.
In the early vote here in Bexar County.
Right. Well, one of the most hard-fought races here in Bexar County is House District 118. Republican Representative John Lujan is trying to hold on to his seat against Democrat Christian Carranza. Let's take a look at the numbers here. Now, this is an old, we don't have those numbers yet.
I actually have them here, if you want me to go there. So it's showing that, and this is just the early vote, of course. We show that Lujan is at 51.9% with 31,756 votes, and then Carranza at 48.09% with 29,424 votes. So that puts her down about 2,332 votes. It's going to be a little difficult to overcome. But I think the story in that race is the undervotes. So undervotes, of course, are the people who skip that race, right? They've come, they've probably gone to go vote for Trump or Allred. This is the big money races, and then when they get to the bottom ballot, they just skip it. Undervotes in that race are over 3,000. So that, had they been able to communicate to some of those voters, and it's really hard to do because those folks that, are infrequent voters, it's hard to determine who they're going to be, right? And you don't have the money and the resources to reach all of them. So
I think you've had a lot of conflicting messages coming out because you have any people that live in that district, which is a very diverse district. People say, well, it's a South Side district, but it really isn't. It goes from the South Side and wraps around to catch in the Northeast. So you have a lot of people in the Northeast that are new to the district and that really are not familiar with either candidate. And then, of course, Carranza has not lived in the district for many, many years and just moved back fairly recently. So a lot of people are not familiar with her. That would be voting Democrat. So I think you have some interesting undercurrents that are running that race.
Yeah. Another interesting thing is that Lujan actually performs better than Abbott in that district as well. Last time when he was on the ballot, he actually got 1,000 more votes than Abbott did.
Democratic stronghold.
Well, it's not anymore. It used to be, right? In the latest redistricting, it's become much more Republican, and now it actually it's like a horseshoe. It really swings around. So it's much more Republican than it used to be.
Still very much a swing district, and it doesn't surprise me that he polled better in that district than did the governor. Lujan has been born and raised there. His father was a pastor, his mother was a school principal. He has spent his life in public service, deputy sheriff, retired from the fire department, very active in coaching, so his core voters in the South Side really do know him. And I think that doesn't surprise me that a lot of the Democrats do cross over and vote for him there.
Well, let's take a look, me, right now at his supporters that we're talking about. KENS 5's Zach Briggs is with the Lujan supporters, watching the returns from Mission Open Air Market. Hey, Zach.
Good evening, Deborah. Yeah, right now, incumbent Republican John Lujan is speaking right now. He just appeared before a room packed of supporters. And again, this is a man that is hoping to secure another term, hoping to secure his seat in Austin for House District 118. And again, it was back in 2016 when Lujan won in a special election, but he didn't hold on to it too long as he lost in that November general election to a Democrat that year. But then came 2021, where he came out on top once again, and then held on to that in the 22 midterm election. And Lujan has been campaigning for the past several months. He has a massive team of volunteers going door to door. And as you could see and hear the swelling support for the incumbent Republican, who spent over 20 years with the San Antonio Fire Department, also has a number of years under his belt with the Bexar County Sheriff's Office. His priorities include a number of items having to do with public safety, of course, the southern border security, and one of the prominent ones, a number of folks here, including those loved ones who lost, for example, their son and daughter to the fentanyl crisis. Lujan has passed bills that have led to recognizing the opioid epidemic as a national or a statewide recognition, especially when it comes to fentanyl. So he's been big on trying to combat the fentanyl crisis here in Texas alongside Governor Greg Abbott. And of course, the fentanyl crisis is also something that Bexar County Sheriff Javier Salazar and a number of other law enforcement agencies have been advocating for as well. Boosting economic development is another prominent priority for Lujan and his campaign. And earlier in this campaign, there were some controversy surrounding Lujan and his stance on abortion, where he made some comments in an interview regarding a hypothetical situation regarding abortion and his daughter, basically saying that he would encourage not to go through with an abortion. Speaking with Lujan earlier today at one of the prominent, busy polling sites in Universal City, was over at the Universal City Library catching up with the representative. He told me that he did need to express a need for his colleagues to consider amending state law to allow exceptions for abortion in the cases of rape and incest. And then, of course, we have Democratic challenger Kristen Karanja. She's over at the Cowboys Dance Hall. We'll hopefully hear from her later this evening. Still waiting for official results regarding House District 118. But this is a race that definitely State Representative Lujan is confident that he will win once again. But now we're live at the South Side. Zach Briggs, KENS 5.
All right, Zach, thank you. Well, San Antonians are also voting on 6 city charter propositions, and 3 of them deal with raising pay for the city manager, the mayor, and city council members and changing their terms. Right now, with the early vote, all 6 propositions are passing. Rania Kaur joins us now live from City Hall with more. Rania.
Deborah, of course, the 3 most controversial propositions on the ballot are all regarding pay and term limits and term length. That's for the city manager, city council, and the mayor. And right now, here with me, I have Mayor Ron Nierenberg, who, Mayor Ron, we were just very briefly talking about the election results for the propositions. And of course, those 3 propositions that I was just mentioning, 2 of them are narrowly passing at the moment. What is your take on the current election results for the propositions?
Well, we're obviously not going to declare victory until every vote is counted, but there's a comfortable lead going into the election day totals, and so we feel pretty good about that. Once again proves that San Antonio voters are smart, they're aware, they're informed, and they want to move our city forward, so I think they made the right decision today.
Do you expect the results to change at all, especially with the propositions? I know we were talking earlier about, obviously, the votes that are being counted right now for Bexar County are counted for the whole county.
Right. No, I think, these results we believe will hold. And again, I'm grateful that once again we've put a question in front of voters that we believe is important. That will move our community forward in significant ways. In this particular ballot election, it's about the governance of the city, and I believe they made the right choice. And so, very pleased with the results. But of course, we're going to watch it all the way to the end. But I believe these results will hold.
Mayor, there has been, of course, some pushback with Proposition C regarding city managers' pay and city managers' term length, especially given the fact that voters kind of made up their minds in 2018.
Well, look, this is, that's why it's an open question, and we presented that question to the Charter Review Commission, which is made up of a cross-section of this community. The city manager of the city of San Antonio is the CEO of a 14,000 employee organization that touches every aspect of every resident's life in this community. So we want to be able to have and acquire and keep the best talent we can. And that's regardless of whether that talent is local or not. It just so happens I believe that the best talent for these positions is actually here in our city right now. We want to be able to retain that talent, especially when we go out for a new city manager, which will happen eventually. And so this puts us in a position to be able to compete for our own talent, because we know that other cities around the country are already shopping in San Antonio to pull our talent elsewhere. We want to keep them local.
Mayor, were you aware that San Antonio actually has the lowest city manager salary, even below Corpus Christi?
Yeah, I am, which is why I believe in the heat of a very entrenched and inflamed collective bargaining battle that was going on in 2018. That was a decision that was made, and we wanted to take a look at it now that things are a little bit more settled, and I think voters made the right decision. We want to be in the most competitive position possible. We want the elected officials who are responsive to the voters of San Antonio to be accountable to the voters in hiring that position, that CEO of the city of San Antonio. And so voters have made their voices heard, that voters, the public, wants to have a voice in the process of selecting our next city manager, our future city managers, and that's exactly what they will get if Proposition C passes, and I believe it will.
Turning to, of course, the mayor term length and the city council term length and the pay for both of those positions, how has it been for you? I mean, you're kind of on your way out. This isn't even impacting you. Why was it important for you to bring this up?
Well, you know, first, when I was hired, when I was elected to be on the city council, my first term, there was no pay. There was a stipend. And so in 2015, voters approved for the first time ever to our city charter a salary for city council members. What that allows is for people, the general public, to be able to run for office. It doesn't, it doesn't just mean that you have to be wealthy or retired to be able to afford to be on the city council. We want city government to reflect our entire community. So that salary was important, and I believe it's reflective now of the diversity that you see on the city council. We did need to make sure that city council salaries were not within the control of city council. We want it to be indexed so that as the cost of living rises, as the standard of living rises in San Antonio, then the city council salaries will also change. It's no longer in the hands of city council because voters approved this proposition. Now that city council pay will be tied to the area median income, which I believe is a very prudent thing to do. It means that politicians will no longer be setting their own salaries in the city of San Antonio.
Thank you so much, Mayor Ron Nirenberg. I'm going to ask you to hang on for just a second. That saying, of course, that was Mayor Ron Nirenberg regarding the 3 most controversial propositions on San Antonio's ballot this evening. We'll, of course, continue to keep you updated on the results as they get finalized throughout the evening. Sending it back to you, Deborah.
All right, Rania, thank you. Well, of course, the UTSA poll had said 60 to 70% of San Antonians opposed extending Eric Walsh's contract or the city manager contract and a pay raise. This is a defeat, I think, for the firefighters who are fighting for this.
Definitely. Well, there were some problems with that first poll that they did because they actually didn't use the actual ballot language. They sort of put it in their own words. They paraphrased it quite liberally. So I think that affected the results. Their second poll, I think, was much more accurate. And then definitely, the firefighters did not spend as much money, I think, as Renew SA did. That's my understanding. So, but you do see, of all the propositions, the Proposition C and F, which F is the term limits, those are the 2 that are in the 50s right now. Not surprising, they're the ones that are a little bit more controversial. The others are, I think they're all going to pass at this point. I think it's pretty safe to call it.
I think they'll all pass, and I think the language was very confusing for most voters who have not spent a lot of time studying it and understand exactly what the subject matter is. So the language was somewhat confusing for the majority of voters, and you really didn't have organized opposition. While the firefighters opposed it, they certainly weren't as active as they have been previously. And I think if you ask most voters, they can't name anyone that was opposed to it on an organized basis, whereas the business community came out very strong in support of it and raised not as much money as they wanted, but did raise significant dollars in support of it.
Yeah, and you're seeing a lot of undervotes as well. I think, Prop A is 58,000. 67,000, 49,000, 51,000. So definitely you're seeing municipal voters voting in this, whereas, your regular folks that come to vote, or the folks that don't vote in municipal rather, probably just skipped it.
Just did the top of the ticket.
Just did the top of the ticket.
Because it was a long ballot.
It was a long ballot. Well, in the race, let's move on to House District 121. The incumbent Republican Steve Allison was defeated in the primary by Mark LaHood, and LaHood is looking to repeat his victory tonight against Democrat Laura Jordan Swift. Here's a look at the result right now. Mark LaHood with 52% of the vote, Laura with Swift with 48%. Of course, this district covers Alamo Heights, Almas Park, up to La Verde. Were you expecting Laura to do better?
I thought Laurel Jordan Swift was going to do a little better. Yeah, a couple of things for a few reasons. One, she got Steve Allison's endorsement, which was huge, I think, in this particular race. And Steve is also one who's gotten a lot more votes down ballot. That he's one of the ones that kind of he lifts the ticket up. In other words, he's gotten many more votes than Abbott has in that district. So definitely interesting. She also got the Express News endorsement, so I thought that might be a little bit of a bump. A little disappointed here. Again, the difference right now is about 3,500 votes. Going to be very hard to overcome at this point, I think.
And it really comes down to vouchers.
Yes, and that and a lot of money was spent in this race around. And that's really why Allison got the opponent in the primary. It's because his position, he was a pro-voucher candidate, and so Abbott, who really wants to pass vouchers, funded essentially Hood's campaign, and looks like they're going to be successful tonight.
I think I'm surprised by it. I thought it would be closer than that because Steve Allison was so respected and truly did vote his district. And I think that says an awful lot. And so he did come out. Mark LaHood certainly has a lot of name ID, be it Mark or be his brother Nico. For whatever reason, there's a lot of support for the LaHoods. I think a lot of people didn't really understand the underlying issues in that district. I thought she would do better, and so I really have to commend Mark for his efforts and for pulling it out, because I think it's going to surprise a lot of people.
And the Democrats have been investing in this district for a while now. You had Selena Montoya running twice, you had Becky DeFelice running, so they have been investing money in this district, so it's a little disappointing to see that it didn't quite come as close as I thought it would.
One could say they've wasted the money over and over, so some of us will hope they keep wasting that money.
Some of us consultants think it's no money spent is wasted for consultants.
But I think it is worthwhile to say that Swift had a lot of outside money coming in to support her race. When you look at the federal dollars that have come in and then the state dollars, so she had significant dollars as a targeted race from the Democrats to pick up. So to not be able to pull it out says an awful lot for the voters and the conservative voters in that district.
And you know, they pulled out all the stops over there. They had Beto. Beto was block walking with her, and he took that district, if I'm not mistaken.
And
Beto
Beto also was supporting Lujan's opponent just this week.
Carranza, yeah.
He showed up at an event this week with Carranza, and so he was really working San Antonio very hard. And so far, he's 0 for 2.
Well, let's take a quick look at the sheriff's race. Sheriff Javier Salazar is seeking his third 4-year term. He's being challenged by Republican Nathan Buchanan, and here are the latest results. Sheriff Salazar with 58% of the vote to 42% for Buchanan. I mean, it's very difficult for a Republican to win in Bexar County.
Well, I think that Buchanan campaigned very hard but was not funded. He certainly did not have the resources or the publicity that the sheriff has. I mean, the sheriff is on television every single night, spoke at the National Democrat Convention, so had a lot of issues and support and people being aware of him and familiar with him. He's been reelected so many times. And that goes a long way to overcome.
And he's just so charismatic. I mean, he's the sheriff, and he's always
a public information officer in his past.
Right, he used to be a public information officer. He's great with the camera. He loves to do fun videos. He's all over social media. I think he's kind of one of those Democratic rising stars we need to keep an eye on. I don't think he's going to stay sheriff very long. I think he may be eyeing something bigger, so we'll have to keep an eye on him.
I am surprised some of the issues didn't stick. The issues in that race that are very significant are the deaths in the jail, which are very significant and continuing week after week. And then when you look at the overtime that's being paid and the failure to recruit law enforcement, all law enforcement is struggling with retention right now, but the Sheriff's Department is particularly struggling with their issues.
All right, ladies, thank you. We'll be back in 30 minutes, and we will be back in 30 minutes, but Henry and Isis will be back in 3 minutes. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll be right back.
At the heart of KENS 5 News is our people. People who've earned the trust of our community through years of experience, community connection, and showing up when it matters most. The reporters and anchors at KENS 5 News are the most experienced team in town, consistently delivering the important news you need. They're the people you're familiar with, the people you trust. KENS 5 News, proud to be San Antonio's own.
You told us that alerting you to severe weather before it strikes is the most important thing we can do for you.
We heard you loud and clear.
That's why KENS 5 has weather impact alert days. We will alert you when severe weather is at its worst.
We'll explain the storm's impact
and let you know what you need to do to be safe.
Certainly a possibility for some isolated flooding.
Weather impact alert days from KENS 5.
On all our platforms, it's another way KENS 5 is watching out for San Antonio's zone.
Let's do it! Let's go! Let's do this! I can see clearly now that the rain is gone. Superstar approaching, superstar approaching.
Just get your popcorn and get ready.
Come on, Julia. Oh, no. I will if you will. You go, gal. Yeah, boy!
Dollar Jill.
If you can't get into the market, it's okay. Renting is fine.
Box, oh, it's bad. Screw cap, oh, it's bad. It's not true.
We are making a wonderful lemony chicken.
Ooh, it's hot. That's good.
I wonder what Serena's doing. I wonder how Serena is feeling.
That's a really good question. No one's asked me that yet.
You're 70 years old? 70, yeah. I'm 21.
We'll see you 7 o'clock sharp.
What makes KENS 5 News different? We have a team of people, both on air and behind the scenes, who are from San Antonio, who have lived here for decades. A team of journalists who know the neighborhoods, the issues, and the people. Bringing San Antonio the news that's most important to this community. Local news from local people. We are San Antonio's own KENS 5.
Welcome back to our special election night coverage on KENS 5 Plus. The polls have been closed for about an hour, and we are waiting to see who will lead our country as the next commander-in-chief, as well as other big races tonight. Good evening. I'm Isis Romero.
And I'm Henry Ramos. We start our second hour right here on KENS 5 Plus on this election night. Results, they are coming in now to our newsroom, and we are crunching those numbers. But before we get to numbers tonight, our team of reporters are across Texas and our area tonight. They're covering local and state races. Throughout tonight, we will bring you updated numbers and dig deeper into the results with analysis. And right now, those votes are being counted as for early voting. And today on Election Day, Bexar County saw a big turnout.
KENS 5 reporter Hannah Tita has been at the Bexar County Elections Department all afternoon and all evening long. She's been talking to elections officials and joins us live with a breakdown of the numbers so far. Hannah?
Well, we are getting our first look at early voting numbers here in Bexar County with more than 50 voting sites now closed. Now, of course, those who were in line before 7 o'clock, they're still able to vote at those, busier locations. But from what we're hearing, most of the sites are now closed. Now, most of the lines also gone, especially the really busy line that we saw down here at the Bexar County Elections Department. That, kind of cleared up around 7:30. Now, what we're learning from the early voting numbers in Bexar County shows Kamala Harris is leading the race for president in Bexar County among early voters, that is. Democrat Colin Allred is also leading his race for senator, and Republican Chip Roy is leading his race for representative of District 21. Now, those are just the national big races, but of course, we're also seeing early voting numbers coming in for local school districts and commissioner races, and all of that is posted on the Bexar County Elections website, so you can check that out. But we also spoke with the Bexar County Elections Administrator Jackie Callanan moments ago. She called this a, quote, beautifully successful day, though she was hoping for slightly higher turnout. As of 7 p.m., so by the time polls close, just over 146,000 people voted on Election Day in Bexar County. Now, again, there were 575,000 early ballots cast and about 33,000 ballots, mail-in ballots, that is, that are also being counted. Now, the presidential election, this presidential election, I should say, shows that the voter turnout sits at about 58% in Bexar County. Callanan was hoping for about 60%, but let's compare that to the record-breaking 2020 presidential election with about 65% voter turnout. So we're, obviously shy of the 2020 presidential election, but election officials are saying that, everything was overall very smooth. People were overall patient and polite, and they said that this is a very successful election here in Bexar County. Again, at least 50 of the smaller sites are now closed, and we're seeing more and more of the voting centers, of the 302 voting centers, also close. And now what's happening is the election judges are taking that electronic information and they're passing that off to 5 major district locations here where these results are starting to come in. And we're obviously, just tracking those races very closely. We're expected to start seeing, though, Election Day results coming in very soon as well. Jackie Callanan expected sometime after 8 o'clock, so we are expecting those results from today to start coming in pretty soon. So of course, stay with us on KENS 5. But for now, reporting live downtown, Hannah Tito, KENS 5.
Thank you, Hannah. We will check in with you a little bit later this evening. Part of what is driving this big turnout is the presidential race. And here is a look at the presidential numbers we're seeing so far. Now, I want to note these are just statewide numbers here in Texas only. As you can see here, Donald Trump leading the way with 54% of the vote to Kamala Harris's 45% of the vote so far. We also have the Green Party and Libertarian candidates with a minimal percentage there on your screen. Taking a look at some of the results from other states across the country. Let's take a look at some of those right now, beginning with Vermont. CBS News is projecting that Kamala Harris is the winner of that state.
And CBS News is projecting that Donald Trump is the winner of West Virginia. They're also projecting that he has won in Indiana as well as Kentucky. Now, remember, 270 is the pathway to the White House. We actually just got new numbers in just now. Other states are already being called for Trump and Harris. For total numbers right now, we're looking at Trump at 154 electoral votes, while Harris has 27 right now. And those are the latest numbers from certain states that have already projected winners for Harris and Trump across the country.
Now, Americans across the country are still voting as the race between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump comes to an end.
So now we go to CBS News correspondents Bradley Blackburn and Natalie Brand covering the two campaigns.
I'm Bradley Blackburn at the Palm Beach County Convention Center, where former President Trump's supporters are arriving to watch the results and hoping for a win. Former President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump cast their ballots in Palm Beach, Florida today. Trump told reporters he's confident in his 2024 campaign.
I would say this was the best campaign we ran.
Later in the day, Trump cast doubt on the integrity of the election, writing on social media a lot of talk about massive cheating in Philadelphia, but he didn't provide any evidence.
If I lose an election, if it's a fair election, I'd be the first one to acknowledge it.
A CBS News exit poll shows more than half of Trump voters don't believe elections are being conducted fairly, while their top issue is the economy.
I think when you look at the end of the day, fiscally, you look at our country, the budget was better, the taxes were better.
Trump's signature issue, immigration, was also a top concern for his voters. Trump may come here tonight to speak to this crowd, but he's watching the results a few miles away with some of his core supporters, including billionaire Elon Musk. They're gathered at Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate. That's the location where he launched this third bid for the White House 721 days ago. Bradley Blackburn, CBS News, West Palm Beach.
I'm Natalie Brand at Howard University, Vice President Kamala Harris's alma mater, where she's holding her election night watch party. She says the HBCU has shaped her into the person she is today.
Vice President Harris stopped by DNC headquarters in Washington, D.C. on Election Day to thank staffers and volunteers.
This truly represents the best of who we are.
She also made phone calls to boost turnout.
Have you voted already?
Early CBS News exit polls show democracy is the top concern for Harris voters, followed by abortion.
I tend to agree with her policies and stances and the things that come out of her mouth.
Harris is hoping to capture a large share of women and first-time voters.
While there are always little differences with Kamala Harris and what she can and can't do, it's a start.
Harris campaign sources tell CBS News the vice president is remaining calm and optimistic, adding she knows how close the race is.
Vice President Harris spent the day doing radio interviews across battleground states trying to turn out last-minute voters. Early exit polling shows the majority of voters, around 8 in 10, decided their candidate before September, but a smaller number made their decision in the last week. The Harris campaign has expressed confidence in those late-breaking, undecided voters. In Washington, I'm Natalie Brand, CBS News, reporting with Bradley Blackburn in Florida.
It's not just the presidential race that's really got everyone's attention. It's the balance of power in the House and Senate. And CBS right now is reporting that Republicans are leading the House and Senate. But of course, those results are still coming in right now in those races.
34 seats are on the ballot for the Senate. The Senate is currently controlled by Democrats by a slim 2-seat margin. Democrats are up for re-election in 2 states that Trump won in 2020. One of which is Ohio. That race is between newcomer Republican Bernie Moreno and incumbent Democrat Sherrod Brown. All 435 seats in the House of Representatives are up for grabs. However, experts do say only a few dozen of those races are competitive.
But because of redistricting, those seats that normally wouldn't be competitive are now competitive.
Right now, Republicans hold the chamber with a slim 4 seats, but Democrats are trying to chip away at that razor-thin race in New York and California.
And this just into our newsroom. The Associated Press has called the race for U.S. House District 35 between incumbent Greg Gassad and Republican Stephen Wright. Congressman Gassad is the projected winner in that race, and District 35 really covers Comal-Hay counties and San Antonio up 35.
And I know you can't see those graphics right now, but 69% of the vote right now for Gassad and 31% for Wright. Again, that race has been called. There is that graphic right there. Well, now to the Texas race for U.S. Senate. Incumbent Senator Ted Cruz is facing off against Congressman Colin Allred.
And Cruz is hoping to secure a third term in office. Experts say that the race of Allred versus Cruz might even be closer than O'Rourke versus Cruz in 2018. At that time, Cruz won by 2.5%.
And of course, we have team coverage on this race for U.S. Senate. Alisa Nieves is in Dallas. She is live tonight covering the Colin Allred campaign.
But first, we want to go to Megan Reyna, who's in Houston following the Cruz campaign tonight. Megan?
Well, Henry Easties, just minutes ago, this crowd erupted in cheers after seeing on the big monitor some early results coming in showing that Cruz is leading Allred right now. We have 56% of those votes counted so far. So the crowd is really starting to gain some energy here. They're also cheering as they see President Trump be declared the winner in certain states. So there's a lot of energy out here right now. Not too much anxiety that I'm sensing. I know I mentioned that earlier. It really is a part. There you hear the cheers again. It really is a party-like atmosphere. There they are talking behind me, a news channel talking about the Texas Senate race. So that's why you're hearing them get so fired up right now. But, you know, we haven't seen Cruz yet. We haven't spotted him yet. He's expected to take the stage behind me at some point tonight. But again, you're hearing the crowd. They are pretty lit up right now. This race, though, that doesn't mean, like you're mentioning, that it won't be a tight one. The senator was campaigning even this morning, going on radio shows, trying to get those last-minute voters. And we know yesterday he went all across Texas. He was out in Selma near us speaking to a crowd of about 500 people. He traveled then up to Denton County in North Texas, where we know Colin Allred has been campaigning hard, his home in Dallas. And then he finally made his way yesterday to Cypress, Texas, near Houston, of course, as he was getting ready for today, spending most of the time, of course, here in his hometown in Houston. But he's really focused mainly on those rural areas in Texas throughout this campaign, areas that he has dominated in the past that brought him into victory against Beto O'Rourke back in 2018. As y'all were mentioning, that was a very tight race. There's also been a lot of money poured into this campaign. Both Cruz and Allred have raised more than $160 million, but Allred did out fundraise Cruz. And then we have seen a ton of political ads, of course, this campaign season. We know Republicans spent $68 million in ads. We saw mostly targets against Allred when it came to the transgender and sports issue. But then, of course, when it comes to immigration and the border control issue, Cruz really hit hard on that as well. But both candidates, of course, discussed that heavily. Cruz wanting to blame Kamala Harris and Allred for open borders. And that was a big part of his message in Selma that we even heard yesterday. He still was pushing for those voters to get out there, for everyone to get out there and vote. And also a big push in his campaign has been for the presidential election as well. So all eyes here, really, I think that there might even be more anxiety tonight rather for the presidential election than this Senate race. But of course, right now it is still close. Cruz is still leading. 56% of the votes are in so far, according to our reporting. But we're going to continue to keep our eyes as those results pour in. And again, the senator at some point will take the stage behind me, and we're just waiting to see if that will be a victory speech or not. Henry, you see?
All right, Megan, we hear the chants and the cheers right behind you with those results still coming in. And obviously, as you mentioned, Cruz leading right now, Allred here in Texas at 52% to 46%. Have you had a chance to talk to the supporters out there? Take us there to the room. We hear the chants. What are they saying and what are they feeling going into tonight now that we've had those results come in?
So I'm being completely honest with y'all. We have been trapped because there are a ton of media here. I mean, because a lot of eyes, of course, are on this race with what it could do for Congress, could possibly determine who controls Congress. So we have really been kept to a small area. There is a ton of focus, of course, on this race. But from what I'm seeing, because I'm still looking around, I'm reading the crowd, this was a free ticketed event, but a free event. You had to RSVP, but there are all kinds of supporters out here. They're already holding up signs. We're seeing veterans for Ted Cruz signs. There's just a lot of energy. You're seeing families, you're seeing children out here, people taking photos with their families. So, I mean, it really is a family environment, a lot of energy, and they expect to be out here for quite some time. And this could go on until 11 tonight, potentially. So we'll see what happens. Again, we're waiting to hear from the senator, and I'll try my best to get past the crowd of media, because again, a lot of media out here as well, because of just the stakes that are involved in this race specifically.
At some point, you're going to have to post those pictures online of the media staging area. I think our viewers would like to see that too. It's very interesting and just speaks to the interest in this race. Thank you so much, Megan.
We know it's tough. We've been there before. It's very tough to navigate. So now let's go to downtown Dallas, where Congressman Colin Allred's watch party is underway at the Longhorn Ballroom.
The three-term congressman believes a victory is within reach tonight. He's hoping to get the first statewide Democratic win in 30 years. Our Alicia Nieves is following the campaign. She joins us live tonight. Alicia?
Well, Henry Nieces, I'm so sorry your sound just went out on me. Yes, we are at the Longhorn Ballroom just south of downtown Dallas, and we just heard our first round of applause for Olivia Juliana. She is the co-chair for Young Texans for Allred, and it was a whole lot of cheers in this room.
My late father was in World War II, and I think about all the struggles he went through. After the war, he didn't get benefits, and he had to struggle. And I think about my grandfather and my mom and my grandmother, and I think about the next generation. It's not about me, and sometimes we have to, God using me as a vessel, we got to fight for each other. Democracy.
Okay, we do apologize for those technical issues, but we're back. So Colin Allred has been saying that 12 years has been long enough for Ted Cruz. He says Ted Cruz has had the opportunity to take action on our biggest issues like the border, and he says that nothing has been done. So he says it's time to send Ted Cruz packing, and a win for Allred. He says it won't just be a win, it doesn't mean a win for him, rather. It doesn't mean a win for the Democrats. It means a win for our state. So he went block walking this morning where it all began here in Dallas. He thanked his supporters at a phone bank. Each supporter made 150 phone calls today, just like the woman, Pauline Tatum, who you just heard from. Allred took the stage saying we all deserve a senator who cares about all 30 million Texans. He's a fourth-generation Texan raised by a single mother. He spent a lot of his childhood in Brownsville as well as Dallas, where he grew up. He was captain of the football team at Baylor. He played NFL football. He was a civil rights attorney, and he said all of this today to thank Texas because Texas gave him a chance, and he wants to serve in return. In most appearances, Allred makes sure to mention 2021, when the power grid failed. He said that we don't have to have a senator who goes to Cancun when we need him the most. We need someone who will roll up their sleeves and get to work. We asked the congressman in his press conference at the volunteer phone bank today what his biggest challenge is going into tonight.
Everybody's got to vote, and every Texan has to know that their voice matters. Every vote will matter. It doesn't matter where you are in our state. It doesn't matter if you have a competitive local race. This race will be, and we need your vote. We need your voice. This is not one that you wouldn't sit out. You wouldn't let somebody pick your Netflix playlist for the next 6 years. Don't let them pick your senator.
Allred Allred has experience beating a high-profile incumbent. In 2018, he defeated Representative Pete Sessions to enter Congress as representative for the 32nd Congressional District of Texas. If elected, Allred will become our state's first black senator. So again, at the Longhorn Ballroom, we are expecting Allred in possibly about an hour. He will be joined by his wife, Allie, and it's standing room only at this point. All the seats behind me are taken. They are full. So lots of energy in the House tonight. They're paying close attention to the numbers, and we will keep you posted if we have any developments. For now, live in Dallas, Alicia Nieves, KENS 5.
Thank you, Alicia. We'll check in with you a little bit later this evening. Let's turn now to some congressional races for our area. We'll begin with Congressman Henry Cuellar, who was indicted earlier this year, but is looking to keep his seat for District 28, which is a historically very Democratic district.
Very much so. And Cuellar is accused of bribery, money laundering, and acting as an unregistered agent of a foreign government. He and his wife will face trial after the election. And here are the results right now. And very surprisingly, you see that Jay Furman, Republican, at 51% leading this race, with Henry Cuellar at 49%. And also, I want to note that you can see at the very top left hand of your screen, we're showing the difference in votes between the two candidates. So that's something also to keep in mind.
Meantime, moving on now to U.S. House District 21, Republican Congressman Chip Roy being challenged by Democrat Kristen Hook and Libertarian Bob King. Those results show, as Megan mentioned earlier during her live hit, Chip Roy ahead right now, 61% to Kristen Hook's 38%. This is with 69% of precincts reporting, some just shy of 75,000 votes separating the top two candidates. For District 23, incumbent Tony Gonzalez going up against Santo Limon. Gonzalez is looking for this to be his third term tonight. And take a look at the results here on your screen. 61% right now for Gonzalez. Santos Limon coming in with 39%. That's with more than half, 53% of precincts reporting.
And for U.S. House District 35, as we just mentioned just a few minutes ago, that the AP is projecting that Greg Casar will continue to represent 35 in D.C., winning this race, as you can see, with 69% of the vote compared to Stephen Wright at 31% of the vote. 74,000 is what is separating those two tonight. Again, Greg Casar looks like he will continue to represent 35 up in D.C. Bexar County and the rest of Texas deciding on several state representatives tonight.
Tonight, let's take a closer look at the race for Texas House District 118. Here is a look at the numbers so far. Republican State Representative John Lujan being challenged by Kristen Carranza. And as you can see here, he is leading with 52% of the vote to Kristen Carranza's 48% of the vote. This is a hotly contested race, so we will continue to monitor this one very closely throughout the night. Another big race, Texas House District 121, another hotly contested race. Republican Mark LaHood looking to secure this seat after beating out incumbent Steve Allison back in March during the primary. Here's where things stand so far. 52% of the vote going to Mark LaHood. And as you can see that notated at the very top of the screen, this is the early vote totals only. 48% of the vote to Laurel Jordan Swift. Of course, as we've mentioned, Hood is backed by Governor Greg Abbott and Attorney General Ken Paxton, while a number of Democrats have come out in support of Swift.
And school vouchers are the big issue behind those two driving forces. Of course, the governor and everyone in the state watching those. Now to Texas House District 116 for incumbent and Democratic State Representative Trey Martinez Fisher, leading this race at 67%. He is seeking his 12th term. He is facing Republican Darrell Crane, who is a pastor. He right now has 33% of the vote, as 68% of these precincts reporting. Now to District 117, Democratic State Representative Philip Cortez is looking for another term in office. He is facing Republican challenger Ben Moston. In June, Moston fact, was arrested in Bexar County for DWI and unlawful carrying of a weapon. He's due back in court in December, but you can see Cortez leading with 58% of the vote, Mosten with 42% of the vote, and this is about 70% reporting. And again, I just want to mention at the top left hand, you can see that the difference in the votes between the candidates will have that throughout all of these races.
Moving on now to House District 119. This one's between incumbent Liz Campos. She is leading right now with 64% of the vote over challenger Brandon Grable, with 36% of the vote. Meantime, Republican Mark D'Orazio is running for re-election in District 122 against Democrat Kevin Geary. Tonight, D'Orazio with 58% of the vote to Geary's 42%.
And Sylvia Soto is hoping to snag the Texas House seat for District 124. And it looks like she's got 37% of the vote, while incumbent Josie Garcia with 63% of the vote. And again, these are just early votes within this race, but it looks like Garcia has a very strong lead against Soto with 63 to 37%.
Moving on to other issues tonight, immigration is one of the leading issues in this election, and the outcome could have a major impact on U.S. border policy.
CBS's Camilo Galvez Montoya reports from Tucson.
We're inside the main election office here in Pima County, Arizona. As you can see behind me, election workers here are already preparing and processing early ballots. They are going to take those ballots to this other part of the office here in Pima County, so those ballots can be tabulated or officially counted. This is where the actual formal official counting will take place and be conducted here in Arizona later today. We know that Arizonans will not just be voting for president, they will also be voting on key ballot initiatives on immigration. Proposition 314. That immigration ballot measure would make it a state crime for people to cross the U.S.-Mexico border illegally. That currently is a federal misdemeanor, but that ballot measure would allow local and state law enforcement to arrest, jail, and prosecute suspected unauthorized migrants. And the law enforcement community here is deeply divided. Some sheriffs support it because they believe it will send a message of deterrence to migrants, but other sheriffs say they do not have the funding to implement this law and that it could lead to racial profiling. Camilo Montoya Galvez, CBS News, Tucson.
Well, concerns about election integrity are being shared on social media.
Ariane Detel with our Verified team looks into claims from Kentucky that have people worried about possible rogue marks on their ballots.
You may have seen this image of a ballot with a tiny dot in the box to vote for Kamala Harris. Some people are concerned that Kentucky voters are receiving these marked ballots and that the dots could possibly make your vote inadmissible. But is that true? Let's verify using these sources. The Kentucky State Board of Elections said the ballot in the viral post is a real Kentucky mail-in ballot. However, the board confirmed they've received no complaints about dots on ballots, adding the false claim only exists in the vacuum of social media. Kentucky law recognizes the following marks as votes on paper ballots. The majority of the selection box is filled in, a candidate's name or party is circled, underlined, or marked with an X or a star without intersecting another selection box. The dot meets none of these requirements, and so elections officials would be able to discern a voter's actual choice if they selected another candidate on the ballot. If a voter does see a dot on their ballot or has any other concern, they're entitled to spoil the ballot and receive a new, clean ballot. So we can verify, the dot seen in this viral post is not appearing on multiple Kentucky ballots, nor would it make votes inadmissible. Also important to note, the Help America Vote Act of 2002 requires voting systems across the country have processes in place to notify a voter if their ballot selects more than one candidate for a single office and provide that voter with an opportunity to correct their ballot. With your Verify, I'm Ariane Detel.
Well, we are taking a quick break, but the night is still young. It is election night. More to come.
Coming up in less than 3 minutes, political experts will be joining our Deborah Knapp in the studio to add context to the numbers rolling into our newsroom. We'll be right back.
At the heart of KENS 5 News is our people. People who've earned the trust of our community through years of experience, community connection, and showing up when it matters most. The reporters and anchors at KENS 5 News are the most experienced team in town, consistently delivering the important news you need. They're the people you're familiar with, the people you trust. KENS 5 News, proud to be San Antonio's own.
You told us that alerting you to severe weather before it strikes It's the most important thing we can do for you.
We heard you loud and clear.
That's why KENS 5 has weather impact alert days. We will alert you when severe weather is at its worst.
We'll explain the storm's impact
and let you know what you need to do to be safe.
Certainly a possibility for some isolated flooding.
Weather impact alert days from KENS 5.
On all our platforms, it's another way KENS 5 is watching out for San Antonio's zone.
Let's do it! Let's go! Let's do this! I can see clearly now that the rain is gone. Superstar approaching, superstar approaching.
Just get your popcorn and get ready.
Come on, Julia. Oh, no. I will if you will. You go, gal. Yeah, boy!
Dollar Jill.
If you can't get into the market, it's okay. Renting is fine.
Box, oh, it's bad. Screw cap, oh, it's bad. It's not true.
We are making a wonderful lemony chicken.
Ooh, it's hot. That's good.
I wonder what Serena's doing. I wonder how Serena is feeling.
That's a really good question. No one's asked me that yet.
You're 70 years old? 70, yeah. I'm 21.
We'll see you 7 o'clock sharp.
What makes KENS 5 News different? We have a team of people, both on air and behind the scenes, who are from San Antonio, who have lived here for decades. A team of journalists who know the neighborhoods, the issues, and the people. Bringing San Antonio the news that's most important to this community. Local news from local people. We are San Antonio's own KENS 5.
Well, thank you for joining us on KENS 5 Plus. I'm Deborah Knapp, and our election coverage continues. And we have a team of reporters tracking local and state races. And we have experts here joining us to help bring perspective to the election results here in Texas. Joining me now, Diane Rath, Secretary of the Republican Party of Bexar County. Thank you, Diane. And Laura Barberena. She is a Democratic communications consultant. Thank you both for being here with us tonight. Well, the presidential race in Texas is over. The AP has called the state for former President Donald Trump. And here are the latest numbers coming in. Donald Trump with 55% of the vote, Kamala Harris with 44% of the vote. That is a big margin. I think that people were expecting that, based on past elections, to be a little tighter. Did people turn out in the numbers that were expected? Diane, let me start with you.
I think people have turned out, but where they turned out, I think, is not quite what people were predicting. We had a very heavy turnout in the Hill Country. I mean, those Hill Country, Kerrville, Kendall County, Gillespie County, Mason, your rural West Texas counties have turned out very heavy. East Texas did. And yet, if you look at the counties along the border and South Texas, and your urban centers of Houston and Dallas did not turn out in early voting quite as much as was expected. We'll wait and see what the final turnout is today with in-person, but I think the Democrats were really counting on having a heavy urban turnout and then the normal turnout along the border in South Texas. And I think it's indicating some of the change in voting patterns that's occurring, particularly along the border.
Yeah, we're certainly not seeing a huge increase in voting here in Bexar County, which is a little disappointing. I don't think we're going to hit 60% when all is said and done. We're probably going to be around 57%, 58%. And again, that's a little counterintuitive, right? Because those first few days of early voting, it's like, oh, we're breaking records. And in politics, Deborah, as you know, we don't really look at hard numbers. It's all about percentage, right? What is the percent of registered voters that are coming out to vote? And it looks like in Bexar County, we're going to probably end up around 58%, somewhere in there. I don't know that we're going to break 60.
And in fact, despite what people were forecasting with those first days of early voting, we really are on the same track for turnout, about like it was in 2016. 2016, 2024 are very, very comparable with voter turnout, the numbers that are voting. You had an exception in 20 because of COVID where all the rules were off. But it's very interesting when you compare 16 and 24.
And then again, all these projections that are being made, the Trump projection, of course. These are all based on early voting numbers, and they kind of get a sense of how many people have come out today. What do we think? That, how is that going to really affect the percentages? At the end of the day, what's being projected right now is obviously what's going to happen. It's just too much of a difference to overcome with the votes that are coming in election day.
10%.
Yeah.
Points. And, Kamala Harris went to Houston. They had the big rally. I think they were expecting bigger numbers there with Beyonce and everyone turning out. But I guess that doesn't always translate.
I don't think it does. I think pop stars, you get publicity, you get excitement, people will come. It's a free concert. Why not, especially if you're young? You can come have fun and go with all your friends. How that translates to really going to vote, to standing in line, sometimes for a couple of hours to vote, is a very different phenomena. And I think also one thing, and it's going to take a little bit more analysis when we have more time, but the early voting, at least in Bexar County, showed that you had an older population, over 70, that turned out to vote more. You had the younger vote, under 30, which did not turn out to vote, and people were counting on that if you were a Democrat. You also didn't have a lot of women turning out. Your women vote was just about the same. In fact, maybe only 1% more than it was previously. So if you have a woman at the top of the ticket and you're really talking women's issues, one would think you would have had a stronger early voting turnout of women, and we didn't see that here.
I think you also see a lot of investment in Texas, and certainly in Bexar County. We saw it recently where they sent out all this voter registration to get new voters registered, but not a lot in terms of turning them out, right? So what that means is we get a whole bunch of new registered voters, but they're not coming out to vote. And usually a lot of that work is done on college campuses, so you get a lot of young people being registered to vote, but getting them to vote is it's really hard to get them to get engaged and into the process. I think that's part of why they're bringing Beyonce and those kinds of folks, to let them understand how important it is in terms of keeping a healthy democracy, that as many people participate as possible. And in this case, it looks like they fell a little short.
And I would say we were very active with voter registration, but really targeting those pockets of people that share the values, that share the philosophy, and that are very interested, but were not registered for one reason or another. And then following up with Get Out the Vote. We've been very focused on Get Out the Vote efforts and very aggressive exercises to make sure people vote, and vote all the way down the ballot. Just don't go in and vote top of the ticket, but vote all the way down. And I think what's encouraging is when you see the number of people who did vote in the 4th Court of Appeals race. A lot of people would stop. But when you see that vote continuing, and you see the continuing vote for some of the state rep races, it's very encouraging that people did take the time not only to vote, but to vote all the way down the ballot.
Well, let's take a look right now at the U.S. Senate. That's up at the top of the ballot. It's another race that was predicted to be tight. Republican Senator Ted Cruz right now, 52% of the vote. Colin Allred with 46% of the vote. We don't know what percentage of the vote is in right now, but that's a much bigger margin than was predicted in all of the polling.
Yeah, and that libertarian candidate kind of throws a wrench into things. That's 2% of the vote that's going towards a libertarian that, Colin could have used to help him.
Except libertarians would never vote for Colin. Come on.
Well, what I meant to say is he wouldn't be on the ballot, right? He'd be best served not to be on the ballot, right?
And I have always thought that Cruz would win with about 5 to 6%. And I think one of the things that is a flaw with polls is that when they're polling, you have a lot of people that aren't going to admit they're voting for Trump, or they're not going to admit they're voting for Cruz. And when they turn out to vote and they go into that voting booth, then their truth emerges. So I think a lot of the polls are going to be off because of that.
It certainly has appeared to be. Now let's go to the race for Texas House District 118. Republican John Lujan is facing off against Christian Carranza. And this district encompasses southeast and northeast Bexar County, including Universal City, Selma, Von Army, Somerset, and China Grove. Zach Briggs has been following this race. He joins us now live. Zach?
Family and supporters, it's 52% so far, and it's still quite early, but what's the impression at this moment?
Everybody here was excited when I got here because we had almost a 4-point lead.
I'm the only one that's still reserved, right? Because there's still time, and I want to make sure that we have more numbers come in before I start really celebrating. But being ahead at this point is really good. Of course, we want to start off ahead.
And just reiterate some of the prominent platforms that you've been running on in traditionally Democratic stronghold.
Well, basically the main one is public safety. And I have a public safety background as a former deputy sheriff, retired San Antonio firefighter. Border issues really scare me. I've been down to the border. I've been in depth going down there, seeing what it means to not just the United States, but man, Texas and San Antonio and Bexar County and how it's affecting us. Those things scare me. Public safety is another one. And then economic development is really big in our area. We just got a big JCB manufacturing company here, so then workforce readiness comes into that. So a lot of things we have here in our district.
Now, the fentanyl crisis, your efforts on combating that. We have loved ones who lost their children to the epidemic.
Yeah, so even here today, we have some moms that are here. 3 moms that I saw they're called angel moms, and they're back here, and they lost their child to fentanyl. The first one I didn't even know it was that bad until when I first ran last time, knocked on a door and I met a family that had lost their only daughter, a 17-year-old beautiful young lady, and they were devastated by it. And instead of just being angry and frustrated, I teamed with her on that. She's now been to the Capitol. We passed fentanyl legislation. There's more legislation that we're going to be bringing in this next legislative session, and so you're right, that plays a very, very big part. And it's a good point for the news to set out that don't take anything. One pill kills. The fentanyl is very, very dangerous.
And Texas has one of the most strictest bans when it comes to abortion. We talked earlier about your stance, how you say you're pro-life, and how if you were to be reelected, you would have conversations potentially with some of your colleagues when it comes to maybe amending the law as it stands. Could you elaborate on that?
Well, one of the ones, when you're going around block walking and talking to voters, one of the biggest things that bothered me was some of the ladies that are kind of fearful that if it's in case of the life of the mother, can they get treatment quick enough? A lot of them are worried about things like that. We should have that clear. Doctors should know that. Hospitals should know that. We should all know the procedures take place. And no woman should fear that if she got pregnant or her life was in danger, that the right thing wouldn't be done. And we need to make sure that they know that.
All right. Anything else you'd like to add? The current vibe at the moment?
No, I'm excited about this race. I enjoy serving and working on issues with constituents. I don't like the politicking so much, but it's something that we got to do, and I'm glad today. It's going to be over by the end of the day, and I'm hoping for good results.
All right. Well, thank you, State Representative Lujan, joined by a band of supporters and family.
Boys, yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. We'll send it back to you guys.
Beautiful family there, Zach. Thank you very much. Right now, John Lujan with 52% of the vote against Christian Carranza, 48% of the vote. You know, Democrats have campaigned hard on the right to choose. What does this election, what is it telling us about that issue?
Well, I think it tells us about that district, not necessarily about that issue. And this district has, in the last redistricting, it became much more Republican. So I think what it's showing is that Republicans tend to be anti-choice and Democrats are more towards reproductive freedoms.
And I think it's much larger than just that district. When you look at Trump's margin that we're seeing right now, when you look at Cruz's margin, when you look at all of the Republican candidates right now, and against a Democrat presidential who keynoted the campaign, not on crime, not on the economy, but on abortion and the right to abortion. I think that is a very significant issue, and where polls are showing that people believe there should be more choice, there is a lot of choice. And I think it's unfortunate with some of the horror stories that have been publicized because doctors did have the right to save the life of the mother. The law is very, very clear about that. I think the message has been sent to revisit it and see if there aren't some exceptions that need to be clarified in the statute. But I don't think it's just one district. I think when you look at this vote, particularly how Kamala Harris portrayed the importance of the right to abortion with no went all the way up to never excluding the third trimester. And when you look at her vice presidential candidate, who can even have abortions, some would say murders, at the point of birth, I think that was a message that many people paid attention to.
Well, first of all, I don't think she was running on abortion. She was running on reproductive freedom, the right for a woman to have autonomy on her own body. And the Texas law is not clear. That's why we heard recently that a young woman died as a result of having a miscarriage. Doctors are refusing to provide care because they don't know the law. And if you hear it, and Lujan said it himself, he said it himself. We need clarity here.
Yes.
We need clarity because people are dying. This is not a good law. It's not good for women and the women of Texas. And hopefully they'll go to the legislature and fix it next session.
All right, let's take a look right now at the Bexar County Sheriff's race. Sheriff Javier Salazar seeking his third term in office, and he seems to be winning this handily with 58% to Nathan Buchanan's 42%. Let's go live to Vanessa Croy. She is live with this race.
Hey, good evening, Deborah. We're here at the Bexar County Democratic Watch Party at Cowboys Dance Hall, and I'm going to just go straight to it. Sheriff Salazar is right here with me. Numbers are looking great after early voting came in. How you feeling right now?
I'm feeling pretty excited. I mean, we're waiting for the election day votes to come in, but so far we're at 58%. It's looking good.
You're doing pretty well. So, looking ahead, what are you thinking for your first couple months in office? What are you looking toward this term?
I think we're going to keep doing more of the same. We've been fighting organized crime, continuing to fight domestic violence. Just continue to keep doing what we've been doing.
And Sheriff, you obviously have a lot of support out here tonight. This is the Democratic Party, but you are the star. There's your sign on the front of the stage. How does it feel to have the support of the community here tonight?
Well, she said star, I didn't. But no, it feels great to have the support here. I mean, we've got the Deputy Sheriff's Association of Bexar County, a lot of the union groups, Texas Organizing Project. A lot of our supporters are here, and I just can't thank them enough.
And you have a message for our viewers at home tonight?
Just continue to watch those numbers come in, and we're very excited about where we're going.
All right, Sheriff, thank you so much. And Deborah, just to give you a quick recap, Sheriff's going to take the stage in a few minutes and thank everybody here for coming out tonight. It is a grand celebration so far tonight as these numbers continue to pour in tonight. So we're going to send it right back to you, Deborah.
Vanessa, I just have to ask you, it doesn't look like there are very many people there. Are people gathered in another spot?
Yes, Deborah. Actually, it's pretty chilly in here right now, and a lot of people are sitting behind us where the vents aren't blowing on them, but more importantly, in front of the TVs, watching the numbers come in. You can see the dance floor and the stage behind me, but on the other side of our camera, many people are gathered. They told us they had at least 400 people RSVP tonight, but we also heard more people coming at the door asking, can I still get in? So we can see people still pouring in tonight, offering support here.
All right, Vanessa, thanks for clearing that up because we were curious about that. Yeah, where is everybody? Yeah. They should be celebrating that with Sheriff Salazar.
Right, and they usually don't like to call the elections. I think in politics we think it's a little rude, honestly, to like claim victory before the first box of election day has been counted, right? Even though it's, the story is pretty much set and we know that Salazar is going to win, it just seems a little, I don't know, rude to be able to claim your victory when they haven't even counted a single box from election day. So they'll wait for a few more minutes and have a few boxes come in, and then he'll probably claim victory.
So that's the Democratic Party's election night.
Correct. It's at Cowboys. They're out at Cowboys tonight.
And how about the Republicans?
They're having a joint win today. I think our new county chairman, Cruz, was very committed to unifying everyone and bringing everybody together. You have a few candidates are having their individual ones too, but they're having one that's really bringing most of the volunteers in.
And where is that?
It's at Anne Marie's on Starcrest.
Okay, all right. Well, while we're focused on the local elections, there are a series of San Antonio City charter amendments further down the ballot that have lasting impacts on the Alamo City well after the next presidential term expires. And 3 of the 6 props deal with pay and terms for city council, the mayor, and city manager. All 6 of the propositions are passing. Now, do we have Rania Kaur with us right now? Okay, let's go live to Rania at City Hall. Rania?
Deborah, so one of the propositions that has gotten a lot of controversy is Proposition C. That's the one that talks about the city manager's pay and the term length. Now, in 2018, the San Antonio Firefighters Union pushed to put a cap on the city manager's pay at 10 times the salary of the lowest paid city employee. And of course, they also added a term length of 8 years. Voters voted it in 2018. And this year, after the fire contract, after the firefighters got the contract negotiated, the firefighters union came out and said that they were against Proposition C passing. Now, right now, with Proposition C leading, I'm here with Joe Jones, who is the president of the union, to get his thoughts. And Joe, what is your reaction with these initial results and Prop C passing?
Well, our initial reaction is that our community has spoken. You know, our whole campaign was based on educating the public so that they were aware of what they were voting on and what they were voting for or against. And at the end of the day, the decision rested with them. And if this is their decision, then we accept that and we move on.
Now, I mean, right now, Proposition C is marginally passing with a less than 30,000 vote difference. What do you think is kind of pushing that, especially given the difference? What do you think is the difference between 2018 and now?
Well, I think some of the difference goes to ballot language. You know, we spoke to many in the community who were confused, even after talking to us, and they were like, okay, we're against. You know, they came out and they were like, wow, I read the ballot language, and I forgot how I was supposed to vote because it seems, you know, so there was a little bit of that, and you know, that's not sour milk or anything, or it's what we were hearing out at the polls. There are many factors that could come into play. At the end of the day, if they didn't hear the message or they weren't the recipients of the education that we were providing, and you know, we were trying to provide both sides. You know, we were trying to be fair and balanced. But at the end of the day, if they didn't hear the message, then you know, maybe they weren't as informed as they could have been.
Now, Joe, very early on with the contract negotiations, I had a conversation with you about sort of ushering this new era of sort of a new, I guess, better era between the Firefighters Association and the city to come out with a statement against Prop C immediately after fire contract negotiations ended. Tell me about the timing of that.
Well, the timing is really terrible, if you ask me. You know, we were laser focused on the contract and trying to deliver a contract to get some kind of relief for our members who had been suffering for a decade. And then to come straight out of that and have to go into this. You know, it's terrible timing. We didn't like the optics on it. You know, just terrible culmination, terrible timing. So, you know, we looked at it and we're like, okay, we work really well with Eric and his team. You know, we've said that from the beginning. We're on record. You can rewind to different interviews. You know, we work really well with them. They're professional. We're professional. We keep it above board. We've both done our best to bury the past and the animosities that lived in the past and belong in the past. And, you know, moving forward, you know, we looked at it and we were like, okay, is this about a person? You know, is this about, you know, Eric Walsh, or is it about the city manager position, the principle behind it, right? The balance of power downtown. And that's what, you know, talking to members of our community and everything, it really seemed like they were in favor of that balance of power, which is why they voted just 6 years ago for the term limits and the salary boundaries. So really, we felt compelled to remind voters, hey, this is actually what you voted for, and this is why you voted for it according to you. And at the end of the day, after informing them and educating them, if they decided to vote for it, then the community has spoken and democracy has been upheld, and we're completely at peace with that.
Now, City Manager Eric Walsh currently makes a little over $300,000. His pay is capped at $375,000, I believe. That's lower than even Corpus Christi, which is paying their city manager $400,000, let alone Austin, Dallas, Fort Worth. San Antonio is at the lowest pay for the city manager.
So that's a little deceptive, right? So, you know, Eric is making somewhere around, you know, $374, and his, as we understand it, as it was reported recently in local media, his total compensation package is actually over $500,000. It had it parked at $506,000. So when you take into consideration all the different ways that they can incentivize the position, you know, it makes that base salary a little deceptive.
So I know the mayor believes that these results are going to be the final results. What is your take on the current results we're seeing right now?
Well, if that's the final results, and you know, the mayor may well be right, then we think that it's fantastic that the city of San Antonio came out. You know, I think we set records this year. We saw a ton of people out at the polls, And that's what it's all about. It's about community engagement. It's about involvement. It's about getting out and making sure that your voice is heard. So if this is the voice and the will of the people of San Antonio, we think it's fantastic.
Even if it goes against the firefighters union?
You're not really going against the firefighters union. You're going against what the community voted for in 2018.
Thank you so much. And of course, we'll continue to keep you updated as we receive results live from the firefighters union headquarters. I'm Rania Kaur, KENS 5.
All right, Rania, thank you. Certainly a very gracious response there. Well, we're taking a look at the numbers in U.S. District 28. This is Henry Cuellar's district, that he was seeking his 11th term. Of course, he's under indictment, but Jay Furman, the Republican, a Navy commander, lives here in San Antonio right now with 51% of the vote. Ladies, are you surprised by this?
I'm kind of shocked. To be honest, I wasn't even looking at that race. I kind of figured it was a gimme for us because, one, he's the incumbent, first of all. You have the advantage of being the incumbent. And then he's on such a powerful committee, and he's done so much for the community. He's brought so many projects, so much money. I'm a little shocked right now.
I think it really goes to what I was saying about how the Valley and the border did not vote as expected. For Representative Cuellar, who is so well respected and so powerful and has delivered so much for the military, to be losing in early voting is very significant. Commander Furman is really new to the area. He is a retired commander. He is very articulate and speaks very well to the issues and has campaigned very, very hard. But I think it really goes back to the early vote and the turnout, or lack of turnout, among Democrats in Bexar County and among the border.
Yeah, now there's still time they might catch up. I don't know. It's pretty close, and a bulk of the bulk of his vote will come out of Bexar County, I think. So we've just got to see where this all lands. This is one to watch.
Yes,
definitely one to watch tonight.
Of course, Henry Cuellar under indictment. He's going to trial in March on charges of bribery, money laundering. But right now, with the early vote, he is losing this election. He is behind 49 to 51% to newcomer Jay Furman, seeking his first elected office. Well, ladies, thank you so much. Really, that's for that perspective. And we'll be back with more. We've got more to talk about. We have more election coverage coming your way. We will be back in less than 3 minutes.
The heart of KENS 5 News is our people. People who've earned the trust of our community through years of experience, community connection, and showing up when it matters most. The reporters and anchors at KENS 5 News are the most experienced team in town, consistently delivering the important news you need. They're the people you're familiar with, the people you trust. KENS 5 News, proud to be San Antonio's own.
You told us that alerting you to severe weather before it strikes is the most important thing we can do for you.
We heard you loud and clear.
That's why KENS 5 has weather impact alert days. We will alert you when severe weather is at its worst.
We'll explain the storm's impact
and let you know what you need to do to be safe.
Certainly a possibility for some isolated flooding.
Weather impact alert days from KENS 5.
On all our platforms, it's another way KENS 5 is watching out for San Antonio's zone.
Let's do it! Let's go! Let's do this! I can see clearly now that the rain is gone. Superstar approaching, superstar approaching. Just get your popcorn and get ready.
Come on, Julia. Oh, no.
I will if you will.
You go, gal.
Yeah, boy! Dollar Jill.
If you can't get into the market, it's okay. Renting is fine.
Box, oh, it's bad. Screw cap, oh, it's bad. It's not true.
We are making a wonderful lemony chicken.
Ooh, it's hot.
That's good. I wonder what Serena's doing. I wonder how Serena is feeling.
That's a really good question. No one's asked me that yet.
You're 70 years old? 70, yeah. I'm 21.
We'll see you 7 o'clock sharp.
What makes KENS 5 News different? We have a team of people, both on air and behind the scenes, who are from San Antonio, who have lived here for decades. A team of journalists who know the neighborhoods, the issues, and the people. Bringing San Antonio the news that's most important to this community. Local news from local people. We are San Antonio's own KENS 5.
We are in the stretch of a long election night, results continuing to pour into our newsroom as ballots continue to be counted across our country and state. It's good to be with you tonight. I'm Henry Ramos.
And I'm Isis Romero. Thank you so much for staying with us for this special election night coverage on KENS 5+.
And as always, our team of KENS 5 reporters, they are on the ground. They are spread across Texas and Bexar County tonight. We will continue to bring you reaction and live analysis.
The big race everyone is watching, of course, the race for the White House. Here are the latest numbers coming in across the state of Texas. If we could pull those up right now. The race has been called here in Texas for former President Donald Trump. I apologize, we don't have those graphics to show you. He was, however, expected to win the state. The numbers show him leading here, and of course, that race has been called.
And several other states have also been called for both candidates. So 270, that's the number that's needed to win the White House. So right now we have Trump leading at 162 electoral votes, while Harris has 81. Now let's get to the Texas race for U.S. Senate. This is a big one. Incumbent Senator Ted Cruz is facing off against Congressman Colin Allred.
Cruz is hoping to secure a third term in office. During his campaign, he said his number one priority as a senator will be jobs. Democratic opponent Colin Allred campaigned on border issues, the state's abortion ban, as well as health care.
And if we could look at those numbers here in this race, if we do have it for the race for U.S. Senate, at last check, it showed that Cruz was in the lead of Allred. I believe it was at 52% over 46%, and those were early voting numbers in that race. But we, of course, have team coverage on this race for U.S. Senate.
Alicia Nieves is in Dallas right now covering the Colin Allred campaign. But first, let's go live to Megan Reina. She is live in Houston with the Ted Cruz campaign. And Megan, I understand that he is about to take the stage here in a few minutes.
Yeah, guys, sorry, there's a lot going on right now. We know just about 30 minutes ago or so, another news outlet did call this race. CBS, we have not called this race yet. But once they did, the crowd erupted and people started heading towards the stage, and we were just told by one of his staff members that he's set to take the stage any minute now, so we're going to stay with you until he does. But like I said, this crowd really did explode here. I think a lot of people expected this race to be more neck and neck. When we look back at Beto O'Rourke and then 2018, that's not quite what we're seeing so far with the numbers that we have in. Again, we have not declared this yet, but it appears that Cruz will take the stage and I believe a victory speech, and we'll hear from him in just a moment. We know he was just in our area yesterday in Selma campaigning to around 500 people, so he has still been up until the last few days pushing for votes in South Texas, but really traveling around in rural areas. I think there was a lot of confidence coming into today. There really hasn't been much anxiety from this crowd as far as the Senate race goes. The presidential race, their eyes are still on the screen, of course, as they're watching as those results come in. But there's a lot of energy, and there's a lot of people out here, several people, 100 people out here, I'd say. You have families, I've seen a lot of young people, young women and men out here supporting Ted Cruz and the Republican Party here in Houston, Texas, of course, his home. And like I want to mention in the past, San Antonio normally does vote blue, Houston as well. But again, it's those rural counties, when you take a look at the map, that overwhelmingly support Ted Cruz. And again, that is where he was focusing his campaign, pushing on the border issue and immigration, really trying to say that Colin Allred is too liberal for Texas. His slogan is "Keep Texas, Texas," and you're seeing a ton of people holding those signs. I want to actually pan to the crowd right now so I can just show you what we're seeing. All of these people, I know that, again, our photographer is doing our best to show you what we're seeing right now. But this energy, it's growing. People are anticipating him to step on the stage
at any moment right now. I want to mention again, we have not declared him as the winner, but he is pulling ahead of Allred. So I'm going to send it back to y'all just for, well, actually, as I say that, we hear the crowd erupt. We might stay with you for just a moment longer as we're waiting. We're told any minute now that he's supposed to take the stage here. Yeah, and I just as I'm here with you, let's talk about money in this race. There's a lot of money that went into it by both parties, $160 million. Allred did out fundraise Cruz in this race. And there's a lot of money spent on, you saw them, those ads that were playing throughout this election cycle. We know Republicans spent $68 million in those ads, mainly targeting the transgender and sports issue, and then, of course, immigration as well, which both candidates discussed heavily. And again, Cruz really just trying to push that Colin Allred is, in his words, he says he is Kamala Harris. And so that's been a big part of his campaign as well, campaigning against the Harris and Waltz campaign here in Texas. We know Texas was already declared, Trump already was declared here in Texas. And whenever that was declared, the crowd also erupted. So really, this watch party, I mean, obviously is not just for this Senate race here. They're keeping a close eye on that presidential race as well. Again, we were told any minute now that the senator is supposed to take the stage and address his supporters. This was a free but ticketed event, meaning that you had to RSVP, but I mentioned a little bit earlier, I am seeing a diverse crowd here. I am seeing a ton of families. I'm seeing a little boy on his father's shoulder holding up a Keep Texas, Texas sign. I'm seeing young people, young women and men, and then of course older people as well. So this really is a pretty diverse crowd representing Houston here tonight. And I want to just kind of point out that there was, coming into this race, people were expecting it to be a bit closer than what we're seeing right now. But we're still waiting for those final numbers to come in. I think when we last checked, we had about 56 or 65, I want to say 65% of those votes in. I'm taking a look right now. Ted Cruz up 53% to Colin Allred at 44%. And we had actually 1.96% go to Ted Brown, which I'm sure Allred was hoping that those votes, that 163,000 votes would go towards him. But right now, yes, it's looking like Cruz has a pretty steady lead over him, 53%, according to our reporting, over Allred's 44%. We aren't calling it quite yet, but it feels like this campaign is. And so that's what we're waiting for, is what appears to be a victory speech from Ted Cruz, looking to serve 6 more years representing Texas and DC, his 3rd term. So again, we're waiting. I think I might send it back to y'all just because you know how politicians are. They like to keep us waiting.
Absolutely, Megan. And as we're waiting there for Ted Cruz
to come out, wait up, I tell you.
As we're waiting for him to come out and speak to the crowd, kind of talk to us about the change in energy. I mean, we've been checking in with you all throughout the night, beginning at the 7 o'clock hour, when it was empty. I mean, clearly, for those of us watching from home, and we're watching the screen, you're there in person, but for those of us watching from home, you can see just a change in the energy, a change in the vibe in the room. Talk to us a little bit about that, how that's transpired over the past hour or so.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I will say a lot of people were kind of in the hallway, in the behind the media staging area, so they weren't necessarily gathered where, in front of us near the stage. So there was still a large crowd. Everyone's just kind of chilling, talking with each other, having a good time. But now you're seeing this energy pick up. More politicians taking the stage. We're still waiting for Mr. Cruz himself to walk on stage here any moment now. But you can see, family members joining him, or we're still waiting for him to walk on stage. I'm going to step out so you can see. I'm guessing any second now he's walking out here. But yeah, so there was a more relaxed atmosphere, not sensing much anxiety all night. And then, of course, the energy just ramped up. And it's really when they started bringing out those results. The crowd would cheer every time they saw Trump took a certain state. And then, of course, whenever an outlet, different outlet, not our news outlet, called Cruz over Allred, things just really went crazy and people were holding up their signs. So it's been, an exciting night for all of these supporters that came out here, again, to this event that was, it was free event. So you're seeing a lot of different people from across the Houston area.
Yeah, some friends and family and supporter. Obviously, we also see Kim Ogg there on stage. She is the Harris County District Attorney, a Democrat who endorsed Cruz. So just some notable folks there on stage as we get ready to hear Mr. Cruz speak.
And as we looked at those numbers that Megan was mentioning, so right now Cruz, which as Megan mentioned, a lot of his supporters, and you hear them, they're excited with the numbers that we're seeing. 53% for Cruz right now, with Allred at 45%. About nearly 700,000 votes is what's separating the two. I mean, and Megan, you even talked about the money that has been poured into this race from both sides, because Democrats, they were hoping to flip this seat, which hasn't been done in Texas. I mean, I think as you mentioned, in over 30 years.
Since 1994, and you know, Democrats thought it was going to happen. They thought it was going to happen this time around because it was so close with Beto O'Rourke last time. The margin was like 200,000 votes or so. This one, you know, a much more sizable difference so far. Again, we're not declaring him the winner right now, but Ted Cruz with a sizable lead over.
Megan, have you seen any more people join you or join the stage so far, or does it look like the senator is going to be heading out? I know it's tough to tell probably from your vantage point.
Yeah, no, there are a few more people trickling onto the stage right now. And so it's just any moment now, right? They tell us about 10 minutes ago, it's 5 minutes to go. So no, we're still waiting. But let me tell you, it is getting loud in here. The music, I feel like they blasted it even louder as people started to take the stage. I mean, I don't know if you're hearing Thunderstruck, so that one's a crowd pleaser for sure. But no, we're still waiting. And I want to go, you know, just back to the point with the money spent in this campaign, $160 million, and one of the most expensive, or rather between two of the campaigns. So in this race, $160 million between Allred and Cruz, one of the most expensive races out of all in the U.S. And a lot of eyes, you know, were on this race because of what it could potentially mean for who controls Congress. So this race had a lot of eyes from across the country on it. But again, this crowd is just, what it's telling me is that they feel very victorious right now. Want to reiterate, like we've been saying, we have not called this race yet, but those results are starting to pour in, and as just the margin between the two, it's starting to grow. So they're feeling energized, and I even saw, it looked like a staff member walk up to the podium there, maybe to do a last-minute check, maybe make sure his speech is correct. So yeah, it is any moment right now. We just want to stay with you because we don't want to miss it, because we feel like any second now.
Well, it could be any second, or it could be another 5 or 10 minutes. So I think we're just going to monitor things for right now, Megan, if that's okay. We're going to just monitor the situation. If you could ping us when he does go on stage.
Of course.
Because we do want to get to our Alicia Nieves, who is in Dallas. She is covering the Colin Allred campaign. Alicia joins us live tonight. Alicia?
Hi, ECs. You know, you were talking earlier just about how high the stakes are in this race. I have never seen this many photographers, this much media ever in my 12 years of reporting than I have here tonight. This room is filled with people, but it's also filled with hope. You know, a lot of people, they're glued to their phones watching the other races tonight. They're glued to the TV, cheers going on as the national races are called, but they're hopeful that Colin Allred will be the one to change Texas blue after y'all said, to win a Senate seat, to turn that seat blue, because we've been waiting decades. So Colin Allred is expected to speak a little bit later on tonight, and who we just saw was Wendy Davis, former Texas politician. If you'll recall, she spoke in the 11-hour filibuster. We just got word that Ted Cruz has taken the stage. Let's take that live.
Tonight is an incredible night. A huge victory here in Texas. Right now, we're up by 8 points at over 600,000 votes. And they're still counting votes. It also looks very likely that we're going to have a Republican Senate next year. And I believe, and I hope and pray that Donald Trump will be reelected as President of the United States. I want to say thank you, number one, to my extraordinary wife, Heidi, my best friend in the world. Such an amazing partner on this magic carpet ride of life. And I want to say thank you to our two beautiful and amazing girls, Caroline and Catherine. You know, politics at times exacts a price on the family. And I want to say I am so grateful for their love and support, and you guys are amazing. Thank you. I also want to give a special shout out to Alexis Nungary. Alexis, thank you for your incredible courage speaking out for your precious Jocelyn, and your courage has made such a profound difference in this nation. We're going to. I also want to thank all the Democrats across Texas who crossed over and supported my campaign. Including especially Harris County District Attorney Kim Ogg. Who has stood strong for prosecuting violent criminals. And I want to thank every Texan across our great state who has stood with us in this fight, who worked and who fought for Texas. I want to congratulate Colin Allred on a hard-fought campaign. And I want to say to all of those who didn't support me, you have my word that I will fight for you, for your jobs, for your safety, and for your constitutional rights. But tonight, the people of Texas have spoken. And their message rings clear as a bell across our great state. Texas will remain Texas. You know, the media were ready to write off Texas. And Chuck Schumer poured in more than $100 million to our state. Well, I want to say thank you, Chuck. And I hope we win a few more Senate seats tonight because you wasted so much money in Texas. They deployed every trick, every lie, and every Hollywood celebrity they could find. Chuck Schumer tried to buy this Senate seat like it was a piece of Manhattan real estate. But he learned what we've always known, that Texas isn't for sale. And Texans can't be bought. Amen. Over the last 2 years, I've traveled every corner of this state from the Panhandle to the Valley, from deep East Texas to far in West Texas. We have traveled 9,094 miles, 53 rallies all over the state of Texas. I've worn out my boots, at times my voice, and certainly the patience of my incredible political team, who did an amazing job on this campaign, and I think is the very best team in all of politics. And what I found traveling the state of Texas was worth every single mile. Because everywhere I went, I found something that gives me profound hope. Common sense isn't dead. It is alive and well in Texas. Everywhere I went, I met Texans who share a simple dream: to keep their families safe, to keep their freedom secure, and to keep their Texas values strong. Tonight, we are witnessing incredible results, especially with Hispanics across the state of Texas. And we are seeing tonight generational change in South Texas. The results tonight, this decisive victory, should shake the Democrat establishment to its core. I've spent months in the Rio Grande Valley, sitting in family kitchens, visiting small businesses, praying in local churches. And let me tell you what I learned. Our Hispanic communities aren't just leaving the Democrat Party. They're coming home to conservative values they never left. They understand something the liberal elites never will. There's nothing progressive about open borders. There is nothing compassionate about chaos. And there is nothing Latino about letting criminals roam free. And just for good measure, we're not tacos. We're small business owners who know that lower taxes means more jobs. We're parents who know that secure borders mean safe neighborhoods. And we're families who know that Texas energy independence means prosperity for everyone. And I found this same awakening to common sense everywhere I traveled. I saw it in the eyes of Texas mothers, tired of being lectured to about their values, their faith, and their children's education. I heard it from energy workers in the Permian Basin and the Eagle Ford Shale, men and women who know that American energy independence isn't just about dollars and cents. It's about national security and freedom. It's about families being able to fill their gas tanks without emptying their bank accounts. Look, common sense isn't complicated. It tells us that borders have to mean something. It tells us that laws must be enforced, that children deserve innocence, and that prosperity comes from work, not a handout. And here's what common sense tells us above all, that the people who built Texas, whether their families came 5 generations ago or 5 months ago, understand Texas better than any social engineer in Washington ever will. When I returned to the Senate, I carry with me not just a victory, but a mandate. A mandate from the people of Texas. And let me be crystal clear about what that mandate means. First, we must secure the border. Not with empty promises, but with concrete and steel and law and order, and with the unshakable resolve from knowing we are protecting those we love. The cartels who poison our communities, the traffickers who prey on the innocent, their days are numbered. Second, we must unleash Texas energy. The answer to America's energy needs isn't Venezuelans, oil fields, or the Ayatollah in Iran. But rather it is right here in Texas, in the Permian Basin, and throughout the state of Texas.
And as you heard there, Senator Cruz addressing his supporters, very energetic right now on the stage in Houston. Quoting the senator, he says the people of Texas have spoken. He is content with the results. He also said this is an incredible night. And his words, the senator saying this is a huge victory in Texas. Content with the results as he is up by 8 points right now.
Essentially giving a victory speech tonight. He also reiterated his support for former President Donald Trump and wanted to thank every Texan, as you mentioned, across the state. He also congratulated Colin Allred for a hard-fought campaign. Speaking of Colin Allred, let's go back to Alicia Neaves, who is live in Dallas covering that campaign tonight. Alicia.
Well, it's been kind of a roller coaster of emotions out here, Henry and EC's. We hear boos when there's a projected Republican winner. We hear loud cheers when a state goes blue or when a projected winner is a Democrat. You know, hope isn't lost. The race has not officially been called yet. We are expecting, of course, to hear from Colin Allred tonight alongside his family, his wife Allie, and his 2 children. Moments ago, right before we took Ted Cruz live, Wendy Davis, a Texas politician, took the stage. You may recall she did the 11-hour filibuster in an attempt to block passage of SB 5. It was a bill that would essentially shut down all but 5 abortion clinics in the state. And I say that because the topic of abortion certainly a huge issue in this race for Texas senator. So let me let you take a look right behind me. This is a packed house inside the Longhorn Ballroom just south of downtown Dallas. There is no room to sit here on the lower level, so we have lots of folks standing up, watching the numbers come in live. Congressman Allred, he has beaten a high-profile incumbent before. Once again, he has not taken the stage just yet tonight. We are waiting to hear word from his staffers about when that might be. But he was really hoping that people would get the message that 12 years was long enough for Ted Cruz, that Ted Cruz had the opportunities to fix the border issues, to fix issues that are plaguing our state, and he wanted the chance to serve. And he has been a 3-term congressman serving the 32nd Congressional District of Texas, and he is just hoping that the numbers might fall a little bit more his way. We will keep you posted on any more results from this race tonight. Live in Dallas, Alicia Neaves, KENS 5.
All right, thank you so much, Alicia. And we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with more election coverage.
Deborah Knapp is back with our experts tonight, continuing to break down the numbers with their analysis. Stay with us.
At the heart of KENS 5 News is our people. People who've earned the trust of our community through years of experience, community connection, and showing up when it matters most. The reporters and anchors at KENS 5 News are the most experienced team in town, consistently delivering the important news you need. They're the people you're familiar with, the people you trust. KENS 5 News, proud to be San Antonio's own.
You told us that alerting you to severe weather before it strikes is the most important thing we can do for you.
We heard you loud and clear.
That's why KENS 5 has weather impact alert days. We will alert you when severe weather is at its worst.
We'll explain the storm's impact
and let you know what you need to do to be safe.
Certainly a possibility for some isolated flooding.
Weather impact alert days from KENS 5.
On all our platforms, it's another way KENS 5 is watching out for San Antonio's zone.
Let's do it! Let's go! Let's do this! I can see clearly now that the rain is gone. Superstar approaching, superstar approaching.
Just get your popcorn and get ready.
Come on, Julia. Oh, no. I will if you will. You go, gal. Yeah, boy.
Dollar Jill. If you can't get into the market, it's okay. Renting is fine.
Box, oh, it's bad. Screw cap, oh, it's bad. It's not true.
We are making a wonderful lemony chicken.
Ooh, it's hot. That's good.
I wonder what Serena's doing. I wonder how Serena is feeling.
That's a really good question. No one's asked me that yet.
You're 70 years old? 70, yeah. I'm 21.
We'll see you 7 o'clock sharp.
What makes KENS 5 News different? We have a team of people, both on air and behind the scenes, who are from San Antonio, who have lived here for decades. A team of journalists who know the neighborhoods, the issues, and the people, bringing San Antonio the news that's most important to this community. Local news from local people. We are San Antonio's own KENS 5.
Thank you for joining us on KENS 5 Plus. I'm Deborah Knapp, and our election coverage continues now. We have a team of reporters tracking local and state races, and we have two political experts joining us, providing analysis of the vote here in Bexar County and across the state. Joining me now are Laura Barberena, a Democratic communications consultant, and Diane Rath, Secretary of the Republican Party of Bexar County. Thanks so much for being with us tonight and for your expert analysis. Let's take a look right now at the race for U.S. Senate. We just heard from Ted Cruz. It was expected to be a close race. Republican Senator Ted Cruz challenged by Colin Allred, 54% for Ted Cruz, 44% for Colin Allred. Now, this is a race that broke records for how much money was spent, $160 million. More money spent in this race by the two nominees than in any other Senate race, according to the federal election reports. What happened with Colin Allred here? I mean, it was supposed to be a close race.
I'm not sure. How's that for an expert opinion? I'm not sure. I will tell you though that for me, what fascinates me about this race is the fact that there's just so much money, right? Mm-hmm. So much money on the table and so much money under the table. There was a lot of controversy about Ted Cruz's podcast, where he was earning a lot of money, and then that money was through iHeartMedia. That money was then being funneled to his PAC, Truth and Courage, or Truth and Justice PAC. What is it? Remind me again. Truth and what? Truth and something PAC.
It works.
Anyway, Truth and something PAC, and then what they did is essentially pour that money into the race. So right now, there's the Allred campaign is looking to see what can be done about that. Of course, it's a little too late now, but so you're seeing interesting things happening on the money side of this particular election.
And Diane, what do you think happened?
And I don't think anybody cares about the podcast and where the money was going, particularly when you look at how the national Democrats poured money into that race and how the speaker just poured money coming down. But when you really look at where the voter turnout is and the strategy, because Allred's strategy was controversial from the very beginning. He never made most of the counties. He focused on the urban areas and he focused on those surrounding suburban counties. And that's where he spent his time and that's where he tailored his message. And I think that there's been a very strong rejection of his policies and his philosophy. When he came on board and would say, facing the camera,
Cruz is lying about me. I do not support, and yet they had the voting record and the signature on letters. I think that resonates with Texas. Texans will agree with you. Just be truthful. Don't say one thing and then do another. And I think the duplicity with which some of those statements were made resonated with people, particularly the last 2 or 3 weeks. I think that it's a philosophy that was strongly rejected tonight. And I think Cruz truly does represent the majority of Texans, and they spoke very loudly tonight.
Well, I don't think Cruz is a pillar of truth himself. Let's just start there. But I certainly think that Colin Allred ran a campaign that was more like a congressional campaign, right? Beto was very different. Beto sort of, his whole thing was, I'm going to touch every single county and I'm going to go all over the place. And I'm going to get my skateboard and I'm going to be on social media 24/7. Very interesting campaign, proved to be not very successful. Allred did a different approach, right? Allred did a different approach where he really kind of ran it again, like what you said, focusing on these high urban areas, which is much more like a congressional campaign would be done.
And I know I'm saying it over and over again, but you have to look at turnout. The turnout in those traditional Democrat strongholds has just not been as anticipated.
Okay.
And it'll be for analysts in the future to figure out why.
Okay, let's move up to Bexar County here and take a look at the Bexar County Commissioners races. Now, in Precinct 1, incumbent Rebecca Clay Flores is seeking her second term, and she is being challenged by Republican Lena Prado. Certainly looks like she's well on her way to keeping that seat with 59% of the vote to Lena Prado's 41%. And in Precinct 3, traditionally the only Republican seat on the court, incumbent Grant Moody is facing Democratic challenger Susan Corbell. Grant Moody with 55% of the vote, Susan Corbell with 45% of the vote. What do you all think about those two races?
I'm going to say a lot of people were very hopeful that Swift and Corbell together would be victorious and go against the traditional voting patterns. And clearly that was not successful tonight when you have LaHood winning with that margin and you have Grant winning with that margin. I think Grant represents his district very, very well, and he has such a strong personal story. You know, a fighter pilot, he still serves in the reserves, was a Marine, as a lieutenant colonel right now in the reserves. The educational background between the Air Force Academy and then going to A&M and then his master's from Wharton. So that analytical ability, particularly being the voice to analyze the budget, to bring forth the conservative voice and really represent taxpayers, pointing out the very high per capita tax burden that Bexar County residents are carrying right now, and really demanding that they plan for the future and recognize that. So I think the voters in his area really do identify with that and appreciate having a strong conservative voice.
Yeah, I do agree that taxes are high, but that's not an issue of local politics. That goes up to the state ledge, and that's an issue that the state ledge needs to deal with because it has to do with the funding of public education and our property tax, which is
not at the county court.
Well, true, but you were talking about how the taxes and the tax rate is high, but at the end of the day, we're raising taxes here to be able to pay for things because of the state legislature. But I do want to say that I don't think anybody's surprised by the Grant Moody win. I don't think that's anyone that realistically thought that Corbell had a chance. And same thing with Becky Clay Flores. I mean, these two races are pretty solidly, red and blue. I don't think there was any surprises there. I don't think anyone really thought that Corbell had a chance, to be quite honest.
I think it's important to recognize that Rebecca Clay Flores ran a very strong race. Clearly, when she was first elected, she took out a long-term incumbent and works the district. But normally, there's not even a Republican running in that precinct. And so for Lena Prado to really file and then aggressively campaign and block walk in a precinct that has dirt streets to this day, it has a lot of rural areas, which much of Bexar County doesn't realize. So much of it is rural, much of it borders Medina County, and sometimes you're not quite sure where the line is. To really run a campaign and come in with 40% of the vote, where we've never even had a candidate before, I think is a significant start and really is giving some of those voters an opportunity to speak and to be represented in a different way.
Okay, thank you. Well, in Bexar County, one of the most closely watched races is House District 118. Representative John Lujan trying to hold on to his seat, and all night long he has been leading there against Democrat Christian Carranza. 52%, 48%. We heard from John Lujan just a little bit ago. He said he's not quite ready to claim it. Now, he flipped this seat in 21 and then held on to it in the regular election in 2022.
Yeah, we have about 82 boxes out of the 302 that have actually reported from today.
Only 82?
Only 82 of the 302 boxes. So there's still quite a few votes to be counted. And again, we don't know where those boxes are coming from. It looks like, from what I'm seeing, those aren't in his particular district or that district yet. So we're still waiting for those votes to be counted.
And again, in Bexar County, when you had 48% of the vote, 49% right in there, early voting, and election day, it's going to be less than 10%, so not a significant vote that was cast today to really influence the numbers when you have that kind of a margin.
Yeah, it looks like a few of the boxes did come in that race, but it's still, right as of right now, election day votes, Carranza's winning, but she's going to have to make up a lot of ground, so I don't know that she'll be able to catch up, but so far she's winning election day, so we'll see what happens, how close she can close the gap.
Yeah. Well, let's go live out to Zach Briggs. He is with John Lujan at his campaign watch party, and I know you were just talking to John Lujan in the last hour. Zach, what's it like there now?
Well, the party is not over, Deborah, and you can see the sea of red, lots of Lujan supporters, and they're waiting for more concrete results when it comes to this race of House District 118, the Republican incumbent. Last check, still leading Democratic challenger Christian Carranza, as you said. Lujan with family and friends, keeping confident that he'll come out on top. Now, he spent 5 years with Bexar County Sheriff's Office, 25 with the San Antonio Fire Department. Now, his priorities include securing the southern border, combating the fentanyl crisis, boosting economic development, and he's also expressed a need to colleagues to consider amending state law to allow exceptions for rape and incest when it comes to abortions in this state. And then, if you notice that at the far end of the room, a few gentlemen might be blocking it, but fresh delivery of pizzas, which might be an indicator that it could be a long night. But for now, we're live on the south side. Zach Briggs, KENS 5.
And in the race for Texas House District 121, the incumbent Republican Steve Allison was defeated in the primary by Mark LaHood. And it looks like Mark LaHood, let's take a look at those numbers, 52%, same kind of numbers as we just saw on the 118, to 48%. And did you think that Steve Allison would have more of an impact in this race?
I thought that his endorsement and Jeffrey Whitmer's endorsement would sway more voters. So I'm a little surprised that the margin is that solid. I thought it would be a little closer and more competitive than that. But I think it really does speak to how conservative that district is.
Yeah, I'm looking at the boxes here. Election day so far, LaHood's winning
on election day as well as the early vote.
Yeah, as well as early vote. So it looks like he's going to probably maintain that lead.
And so vouchers in both of these districts were an issue, and people seem to be voting for vouchers.
I think that they really are voting for choice in education and want the opportunity to have vouchers. And I think it was the lack of opportunity to have input that really frustrated some people. So vouchers clearly is an issue, and the general philosophy of the Republican Party.
Right. And I think that Democrats believe that vouchers essentially defund our public schools. So, that's the main concern that Democrats that we share, is that we feel that vouchers is really just taking public dollars and using them in private companies.
Well, that's what Steve Allison had said.
Yes.
And that's why he lost his seat.
Yes, yes.
So he was campaigning on that.
Yeah.
All right, now let's take a look. Sheriff Javier Salazar has handily won re-election to his third term, defeating Nathan Buchanan. Do we have those numbers? 58%. Javier Salazar, Nathan Buchanan is 42%. Tough for a Republican in Bexar County.
Yeah.
It is difficult. And I was going to say, Nathan picked up a point as the votes come in. It's very difficult, particularly with the media coverage that the sheriff gets. He's very good in front of the camera and certainly seeks out those opportunities.
Yeah, and if folks want to follow along to see the results as the evening goes on, Bexar County has them on their website for Bexar County. But keep in mind, if you're looking at some of the other races like the Fourth Court of Appeals or those, you'll have to go to the Secretary of State website because those are multiple counties. So you may think that someone's won, but the fact is, if you look at just Bexar County, but the reality is it's multiple counties, so you've got to go to the Secretary of State's office, their website to look for that information. So.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that, Laura. Well, let's go live to Vanessa Croy. She is at the Democratic Watch Party. She joins us live. Vanessa, Cowboys?
Thanking all the supporters that came out tonight. We do expect him to take the stage once more. We're waiting for that right now. But once again, we saw him take a pretty strong lead once those early voting numbers came in tonight. He said tonight that he hopes once the final numbers come in that he'll be elected for his third term, something that hasn't happened in Bexar County for quite a long time. Now we know Salazar easily knocked out his Democratic opponent in the March primary. And he once again gained national attention in August when he spoke to delegates at the Democratic National Convention. Salazar touts his fight against human trafficking, increasing pay for deputies, and increasing accountability as some of his main accomplishments as sheriff. Now, we asked him earlier tonight about criticism he received from his opponent, claiming that he's soft on crime, and he says the jail wouldn't be so full all the time if that were the case. We also wanted to know what he's going to focus on as he potentially could move into his third term. Here's what he had to say.
I think we're going to keep doing more of the same. We've been fighting organized crime, continuing to fight domestic violence, just continue to keep doing what we've been doing.
And Deborah, tonight the sheriff also sent a big thank you out to the Deputy Sheriff's Association, saying it was their boots on the ground out campaigning that helped get those numbers in tonight. He said that they knocked on almost 100,000 doors here in Bexar County, hoping to gain support of voters out there. Looks like that turned out well for him as far as we know right now. For now, Deborah, we're going to send it back to you.
All right, Vanessa, thank you. Well, Bexar County voters were also voting on amendments to the city charter. There were 6 propositions on the ballot, all 6 passing. Back in 2018, voters voted 70% to cut the salary for the city manager and to limit that term. But this go round, they voted to eliminate that. This is Prop A, the Ethics Review Board, that passed handily. They're adding some verbiage into that for conflict of interest. And then on Prop B, that's just updating language. Let's go to Prop C, which is the one for the city manager. And that was really the closest one, 54% for, 46%. This removes the cap for the salary for the city manager and removes the term limitation. And the fire union was out voting to maintain that cap and those term limitations. They were, I guess voters didn't agree with them on that.
Right.
And what do you think about voters voting for all 6 of these propositions?
Yeah, I'm surprised, really. I thought that maybe one of them would fail, particularly perhaps this one, because firefighters were out in full force for this. They were out at the election sites. They were wearing their yellow T-shirts, holding the signs, telling folks to vote no, which is important because so many of these folks coming to this election aren't aware that the propositions are even on the ballot. So a little surprised, and the 4 votes are winning on election day as well. So it looks like it's on its way to passing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised, and I think it goes to the language. I think the language was very ambiguous and not clear, because you would have people being against, and when they got in the poll, I think they were confused and not quite sure what way they were supposed to vote because of the language. And the firefighters were certainly against it, but they weren't against it as much as they were for it when it was initially on the ballot. And I think the resources that were available to fight it were much more limited than the resources that were pushing it.
I also think it's good for San Antonio. I mean, I think passing this proposition allows us to, one, keep Eric, which is a good thing, I think, and then also to be to offering adequate compensation for this work. San Antonio is one of the lowest paying cities when it comes to our city manager, and it's a huge, I mean, you're running a huge company essentially, right? And so it's nice that this will allow us to continue to recruit the brightest and the smartest out there, which is important in terms of our city, which we know is growing. You can tell by all the construction that's everywhere. So definitely, we need a city manager who's up to task, and we've got to be able to offer that compensation to bring in the best.
I agree with that, but I'm surprised about a couple of the other issues. Allowing the city employees to be involved in campaigns could make us like the Chicago. And I'm very surprised that one passed with that margin. I'm also surprised about the change in term limits. I think that's a very surprising one. I think people really want an opportunity to speak and speak to whom is representing them. And I'm surprised that both of those passed by those same margins.
Yeah, and then there is ability to recall in this. So, but the reality is that running a recall election, it's expensive. So to think that citizens are going to rise up and collect signatures, that's just naive. That's not going to happen, right? You'd have to have a full scale campaign that's really funded to be able to unseat someone who's in that race. And then we were talking about this off camera, that really, because it's kind of 8 to be realistically. It's really 8 because it's going to be really hard to unseat someone who's been there 4 years unless they've just done a horrible job. But you have the advantage of the incumbency. You're going to, you have all the resources of the city to get your name out.
And now you have the city employees.
Yeah, now you got the city employees
now they can campaign.
Yeah. So I think we're looking at less turnover in council.
All right, ladies, thank you so much for joining us. Really enjoyed your analysis. And Eyewitness News at 10 is coming right up. More election coverage.